Chapter 1084. Meng Heng stayed behind to collect Meng Zhan's body. Jiang Pengji left with the others, leaving Meng Heng alone. Everyone left except for Nie Sun. Meng Heng knelt until his knees were numb. It took him a while to regain his composure. From the corner of his eyes, he saw Nie Sun, whose expression he could not see clearly. "Qingyun, your arm is still injured. It's not suitable for you to stay in the damp and cold dungeon." He put Meng Zhan's cold body on the ground, opened his hands that were holding the sword, and uncurled his fingers one by one. Only then did Nie Sun return to his senses. His throat emitted a sound like that of a wild beast, as if he was suppressing a strong emotion. Wow! Nie Sun supported himself against the wall with his uninjured right hand and retched in discomfort. Meng Heng raised his hand and closed Nie Sun's eyes. He didn't seem to notice Nie Sun's abnormal reaction. "What's your relationship with the Meng family?" Nie Sun wiped the remaining stain on the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand and panted. "I'm from the Nie family of Zhongzhao's Bian prefecture. How could I be related to the Meng family?" The head of the Meng family committed suicide, and Qingyun accidentally injured him in order to protect him. None of this is your fault. Meng Heng's hand paused as if he was relieved. "It's all thanks to Qingyun's help today. Otherwise, the one lying on the ground right now would be Heng." Nie Sun looked at Meng Heng's back with a complicated gaze. His usually straight back was now slightly bent. It was sad to see him all alone. "I thought that Lu Prefecture Magistrate was a sentimental person, but after this incident, I realized that I was wrong, very wrong." Nie Sun left the dungeon and was not surprised to see Jiang Pengji. He stepped forward and said, "Magistrate Lu, aren't you afraid of falling out with Shurjiu by doing this? This is already the best situation. Cousin Heng is a smart man. He knows what's best for him." Jiang Pengji smiled. "Meng Zhan's life can't be saved. If his death can be exchanged for the rest of the Mengs, wouldn't that be wonderful? Logically speaking, even if Meng Heng didn't hate her, there would still be some animosity between them. What was the price of doing so? The Meng family had no one to protect them. Meng Heng was generous and gentle, but that didn't mean he was a sentimental person. On the contrary, he was calm and rational. Meng Zhan is cousin Heng's biological father, but the father-son relationship between them has been eroded by Meng Zhan." Jiang Pengji looked at Nie Sun calmly and smiled. "People's hearts are complicated, but they are also simple. If cousin Heng wants to blame me, I have nothing to say." When Nie Sun heard this, his Adam's apple bobbed a few times. He looked at Jiang Pengji with some shock. "Why, you've guessed my identity, haven't you?" Nie Sun was almost sure that Jiang Pengji knew the truth. "I'm afraid you don't know, but your face is very similar to my Shu aunt's. Many years ago, my aunt told me that her son, who died prematurely, was born with a cinnabar mole between his eyebrows." Jiang Pengji smiled. "When I first saw you, I thought your face looked familiar. Later, I heard from Bogeo that you came to Dongqing to look for your relatives, and I began to suspect you. But I don't have any evidence, so I'm not sure. It wasn't until cousin Heng escaped from Cangzhou and you took extra care of him that I could be sure." "Well, do you admire Meng Zhan?" Nie Sun gritted his teeth and said, "How is that possible? Meng Zhan didn't raise him, and he was cruel enough to let his illegitimate son take over his identity. He buried him, who was less than a month old, in the cold underground. If he had been a little unlucky, he would have lost his life long ago. To him, Meng Zhan was just a stranger who was related by blood." Jiang Pengji sneered. "If that's the case, isn't it even more unreasonable for you to blame me?" Nie Sun choked and couldn't speak. After a while, Nie Sun looked at his hands. The blood on them had dried up. "You plotted to kill your father. Isn't the magistrate of Liuzhou afraid of revenge?" Jiang Pengji said, "You and I are on opposing sides. I have so many enemies. It doesn't matter if you're here or not. The winner is the king, and the loser is the bandit. If one day I become your prisoner, you can take my life as you wish." After saying that, Jiang Pengji walked past Nie Sun and left without looking back. She didn't walk far before she saw a familiar figure standing at the end of the long street from afar. Warmth rose in her heart. She didn't need others to understand her, but if someone was willing to open their hearts to her, that would be the biggest gain. It was a special time, and Meng Zhan was a prisoner. His funeral had to be simple. But when Meng Zhan's coffin was buried, Meng Heng had lost a lot of weight. His clothes that fit him looked empty. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, no one from the Mengs came to the funeral. The funeral procession looked sparse and desolate. If Wei Ci, Feng Zhen, and the others hadn't attended the funeral for Meng Heng, it would have been even more desolate. Jiang Pingji didn't attend, but without her secret support, Meng Zhan's mourning hall would have been smashed by the people of Meng County. I wonder what good things Meng Zhan did in his past life. He's done so many bad things in this life, but he still has a good son to send him off. Meng Hun's revenge was avenged, but the knot in his heart wasn't so easily resolved. If nothing had happened to his wife and daughter, he would have a grandson by now and become a happy and peaceful father-in-law. Feng Zhen smiled as he poured wine for Meng Hun and filled up his own goblet. Officer Meng, why don't you have another wife? You've already avenged your wife and niece. It's time for you to move on. The dead are gone, but the living are like this. They can only rest in peace if you live a good life. Meng Hun shook his head. He didn't want to have another wife. He just wanted to be loyal to his lord and repay him for saving his life. Feng Zhen said casually, Meng Zhan is dead. The grudge from back then has finally come to an end. Meng Hun snorted and put down the goblet. Sure, you don't have to beat around the bush. I'm a rough guy. Just say what you want to say. Feng Zhen didn't feel awkward. Instead, he smiled. Since Officer Meng has spoken, I'll speak the truth. The trouble Meng Zhan caused shouldn't involve his children. My lord will treat the Meng's branch family lightly. I'm letting you know about this in case you feel uncomfortable. Plus, Sergio is my lord's cousin. He's talented and will be put in an important position in the future. Officer Meng and him. It was a big taboo to not be on good terms with each other. Meng Hun was silent for a while and asked, Is this what my lord wants? Feng Zhen smiled. No, my lord. I'm just guessing. Meng Hun downed the wine in the goblet and snorted. Meng Sergio has been with my lord for a while. Have I ever made things difficult for him? Feng Zhen cupped his hands and said respectfully, Officer Meng is broad-minded. You're thinking too much. I'll drink this as a punishment. Meng Hun raised his hand to stop him and said angrily, There's only one jar of good wine. How much do you want to drink? After the funeral, Meng Hun immediately changed out of his mourning clothes. He wore plain clothes with a plain white belt around his waist. That night, he went to look for Jiang Pingji. I thought Cousin Heng would come looking for me earlier. Chapter 1085. Master? Meng Heng was about to bow, but Jiang Pingji stopped him. There are no outsiders here. You don't have to call me Cousin Heng in private. Meng Heng shook his head and said sternly, Etiquette cannot be ignored. Although Heng is the Lord's cousin, he cannot easily overstep his boundaries. No matter how good their relationship was, it could not withstand the slightest neglect and rudeness. Meng Heng did not want today's intimacy to become rudeness in the future. Jiang Pingji secretly rolled her eyes and sighed. Cousin Heng is good in every aspect, but he's too cautious. Meng Heng did not say anything. This cautiousness and politeness were deeply ingrained in his bones. It was not something that could be changed in a short time. If he hadn't been careful and meticulous, he probably wouldn't have lived to this age. Jiang Pingji grabbed a table and leaned half of her body on it. She asked casually, What does Cousin Heng want to know? Meng Heng was definitely not looking for him for official business. It was most likely related to the dungeon incident. I'm very happy that Cousin Heng still chose to trust me. Jiang Pingji smiled. If Meng Heng was unhappy, he could ask Nye Sun, but he didn't. Instead, he waited until Meng Zhan's funeral was over. Since Cousin Heng treats me with sincerity, I can't lie to you. Meng Heng sat upright, like a green bamboo that would not bend in the face of wind and rain. His tenacity and integrity were what Jiang Pingji admired. Nye Qingyan, he's the Meng family patriarch's lost pearl in the vast ocean? Meng Heng had already guessed that Nye Sun was related to him by blood, but he had not guessed that Nye Sun was his younger brother from the same mother. Jiang Pingji sighed. It's a long story. I'm afraid that cousin Hing doesn't know that Meng Liang isn't my aunt's child. What? Meng Heng widened his eyes in shock. Jiang Pingji said, back then, my aunt and Meng Zhan's concubine were pregnant at the same time. They gave birth to a son almost at the same time. Meng Zhan didn't want to mistreat the concubine's child, so he allowed the concubine to swap the concubine. The Shu aunt's real child was replaced by a concubine and died in less than 2 days. The maidservant buried the baby carelessly. Luckily, a passing maidservant dug it out and sold it to Zhongzhao. Meng Heng's clenched fists trembled uncontrollably. At that moment, he was almost speechless. Nye Sun, he's that child? No wonder. Meng Zhan, Meng Liang, and the concubine were like a family. However, Meng Heng had always wondered why his father let the concubine raise his second son. This was the crux of the problem. I think, Shu aunt probably didn't want your situation in the Meng residence to become more difficult, so she didn't tell you these old matters. Jiang Pingji took a sip of the sake. The bland taste of the wine spread in her mouth, carrying a tinge of bitterness. At first, I didn't recognize Nye Sun's identity. I just felt that his silhouette resembled someone, but I couldn't remember who that person was. After that, I heard that Nye Sun was very close to you and took good care of you. Nye Sun came to Dongqing to look for his family. Only then did I confirm his identity. He was the real Meng Liang. Meng Heng shook his head. No, Nye Sun is Nye Sun. How can the name Meng Liang tarnish him? Meng Heng could not remain calm after receiving too much information in such a short period of time. My lord, you already knew of Nye Sun's identity. Then, did you also deliberately facilitate the dungeon incident? Jiang Pingji smiled. Cousin Heng, are you bitterly disappointed? Are you suspecting that I deliberately pushed you into a dead end? Meng Heng shook his head weakly. He looked listless, as if he had been drained of all his energy. My lord, you are highly skilled in martial arts. You were not far away at that time, but you were watching from the sidelines. It shows that you were confident. Meng Liang's sudden outburst was not something that could be controlled by an outsider. I'm just not sure. Did you want me to kill Meng Liang in your plan? Jiang Pingji frowned. Let you kill him? What's the difference between that and crippling you myself? Meng Heng was different from Nye Sun. If Meng Heng accidentally killed Meng Zhan, he might be depressed for the rest of his life. My lord, you want to cripple Nye Sun? Cousin Heng, are you soft-hearted? Humans are not plants. How can we be emotionless? Meng Heng did not deny it. He really had a good impression of Nye Sun. Nye Sun looked very similar to his mother, which made them feel closer. Meng Heng was surprised and happy to hear that Meng Liang was his biological brother. He could not bring himself to do it. Meng Heng's lips moved. His eyes were filled with complexity and struggle. Although they were not brothers, Meng Heng could not cripple Nye Sun as soon as they met. Jiang Pingji sneered. Nye Qingyun is not cousin Heng. His heart is much colder than you think. As a father, he gave birth to him but did not raise him. To him, Meng Zhan was not only not his father, but also his mortal enemy. He offered advice to Bogeo many times and made trouble for me many times. This incident in the dungeon can not only end the grudge between me and Meng Zhan, but it can also serve as a warning to Nye Sun. I have done this with a clear conscience. If I had to apologize, it would be cousin Heng. No matter how bad he is still your father. Was Nye Sun allowed to plot against her, but she was not allowed to? Moreover, Jiang Pingji's real purpose was to let Meng Zhan die with everlasting regret. Nye Sun was just a convenience. How could Meng Heng agree? What Meng Zhan had done was not just about personal grudges. It was about the country. It was enough to drag the entire Mengs into eternal damnation. Even if Meng Heng still had a trace of father-son relationship in his heart, he would not lose his head and plead for Meng Zhan. The Lord was willing to be honest with him. It was already a rare trust. Jiang Pingji did not force him. Meng Heng would think it through. After a while, Meng Heng said, Lord, what about the previous arrangements? He had wanted to sow discord between Huang Song and Nye Sun. He wanted to use Nye Sun as a breakthrough point to split them from the inside and cause discord between them. Now that this had happened, of course it has to continue. but I am not a cold-hearted person. If Cousin Heng is unwilling, I will not force you. Meng Heng shook his head. He did not bring up this matter to quit midway. It is most appropriate for Heng to handle this matter. The Lord has given Heng an important task, and Heng will repay it as a national hero. Meng Heng was not stupid. The struggle for hegemony was not a child's play. One careless move and he would lose everything. Feng Jin and Feng Ju parted ways because of this. What did he and Nyesun count for? Meng Heng's side was solved, but Nyesun's troubles had just begun. After that day in the dungeon, Feng Ju told Huang Song about his speculation. Huang Song was stunned. You mean, Qing Yun is from the Mengs, and he is Meng Heng's younger brother? Why would he hide such an important matter from me? Most likely. It would be fine if Nyesun was not in the know, but Yuan Exen had told Huang Song that Nyesun called Meng Heng elder brother. Considering Nyesun's reaction in the dungeon, Meng Heng obviously knew about it, but he did not want to make it public. What was his motive? Song is happy for Qing Yun that he has found his family. Is there a need to hide it like this? The more he thought about it, the more Huang Song felt uncomfortable. Feng Ju said, Lord, this matter is of great importance. Please make a conclusion after further investigation. Chapter 1086. The matter between Nyesun and Meng Heng had been resolved smoothly, but only the people involved knew whether or not it was over. Huang Song still held a grudge. Who asked Nyesun to deceive them first? Even though Huang Song did not show it clearly, Nyesun was a shrewd person. He felt somewhat bitter in his heart. Nyesun had mixed feelings as he watched Meng Heng visit him every few days. He had something to say, but he didn't know whether he should say it or not. Aren't you afraid that Lu Shi will suspect something? Nyesun finally couldn't hold it in any longer and probed. If Heng distanced herself from you, Master would be suspicious. You and I have a clean relationship, so there's no need to hide it. It'll only make people gossip. Meng Heng let out a bitter laugh, as if he had his own difficulties. According to the logic of ordinary people, brothers who had finally reunited with each other should naturally be on good terms with each other. How could they not contact each other until death? Before they acknowledged each other, their relationship was already pretty good. Now that they were related by blood, there was no reason for them to drift apart. Nyesun was at a loss for words. Meng Heng was like a piece of sticky candy that came to him of his own accord. He had not been able to get rid of him before, but now he would stick to him even if he did. Right now, the most troublesome thing was not personal affairs, but the activity outside Zhangjiang Pass and Yumen Pass. After the Meng's manor was raided, the letters between Meng Zhan, the Nyes of Zhongzhou, and the Yis of Beiyuan were also exposed. Not only was the Mengs pushed to the teeth of the storm again, but the grim situation at the border was also on the table of Jiang Pingji and Huang Song. If the two of them fought, others would definitely take advantage of it. The best solution was for the two families to continue to form an alliance and help each other. Only then would the Zhongzhou Nye clan and the Beiyuan Yi clan not dare to act rashly. When Feng Ju visited Jiang Pingji on behalf of Huang Song, the audience in the streaming room exploded before she could. Suega, I've been following the live stream for so many years, but this is the first time I've felt so aggrieved. The streamer is the one who has been wronged. Not only did she not give her personal space to heal her wounds, but Huang Song shamelessly came up to her and wanted to form an alliance with her to fight against the enemy. Xinjia, I've been a bit depressed lately. Although I've gotten back some face from Meng Zhan, I'm still not happy. Fei, the streamer's ultimate move takes a long time to charge up. Mushroom soup hot pot, calm down. This has happened a lot in history. Our boss Chao, because of his lust, played with Mrs. Zhou, the widow of Zhang Xiu's uncle, which led to Zhang Xiu's betrayal. His eldest son Chao Ong, nephew Chao Anmin, and General Dian Wei were all killed. What was the result? Didn't Boss Chao treat poison warrior Jia Su as his precious eyeball? Jia Su was the only one among Boss Chao's many advisors who died of old age. The grievances that the host has suffered are not even 1/10,000th of what Boss Chao has suffered, so it is not considered bitter. Lao Cg Lianming, #Picnose1. The streamer wouldn't play the role of a widower who has been defeated by a general. As the audience chattered on, the topic of conversation began to stray to an unseemly degree. Jiang Pingji was calm and composed. She was not affected at all. Feng Zhu looked at the big picture and hoped that the two families could let go of the past and defend the land of Dongqing together under the banner of righteousness. Naturally, she couldn't undermine him. Even if Huang Song hadn't mentioned it, Jiang Pingji would have suggested consolidating the alliance. Now that Huang Song took the initiative to bring it up, the effect was better. Feng Zhu had a bad premonition that the lobbying this time was going too smoothly. He went back and passed the message to Huang Song. Huang Song also expressed that something was wrong. He kept pacing, almost making a hole in the ground. Lanting's temperament is, to put it nicely, serious. To put it bluntly, she's calculative and vengeful. After suffering such a big loss, the more generous she is and the more unfussy I am, the more uneasy I feel. I have a feeling that she's holding back some tricks. Huang Song felt uneasy, but according to the scouts' report, whether it was the 5,000 elites in Meng County or the army stationed at the border of Qinyan County, all of them were well behaved. Feng Zhu thought so too. Jiang Pingji had left a deep shadow in their hearts when she was young. They couldn't help but overthink it. By the way, about Qingyun, is he still close to Meng Heng? Feng Zhu said, the two of them are friends. My lord, you can't listen to Yuan Sun's words and ruin the harmony between the civil and military officials. He didn't know what kind of temper Yuan Xian had. He kept his eyes on Ye Sun and refused to let go. No matter how loyal a person was, he couldn't stand such suspicion. The more Yuan Xian did this, the further Ye Sun would be pushed away. Thinking of this, Feng Zhu felt some resentment towards Yuan Xian. He was a dignified general, but instead of thinking about killing the enemy and being loyal, he kept his eyes on such a small matter. His vision was too narrow. Huang Song responded vaguely, but only he knew if he took it in. Before Ye Sun's identity was exposed, Huang Song naturally believed him. No matter how much Yuan Xian talked, he never wavered. Ever since he found out that Ye Sun was deliberately deceiving him, Huang Song had a grudge. This grudge was very, very small, but it was a seed of suspicion. It took root fiercely. Yuan Xian snitched on him every now and then, which became the best nourishment for the seed to germinate. One day, it would grow into a towering tree. Seeing Ye Sun go to the big pit and never return, Wei Ci felt even more sorry for Yang Si. What was the connection between the two? In his previous life, Yang Si had been harmed by his lord by sowing discord. In the end, he had no choice but to be recruited by his lord. Speaking of Jing Rong, there should be good news coming from his side soon, right? Jiang Pingji had been in Meng County for some time. No matter how good it was still Huang Song's territory. It was needless to say that it was dangerous. She refused to move because she wanted to cover for Yang Si and Dian Yen. In ancient times, the transmission of information was very slow. Even if it was 800 miles at top speed, it still needed a certain amount of time. Qinzhou and Sangzhou were separated by the rapid Song River. As long as they seized this important route in advance, the news would be pushed back again and again. When Huang Song received the news that Yang Si and Dian Yen had brought troops to Qinzhou, the situation was basically settled. She wanted to see who would be the one to suffer in silence in the end. Meng Zhan bore the crime of regicide and cleared the way for Huang Song. In the end, the person who would reap the rewards would be her, Jiang Pingji. Wei Ci came back to his senses and said, looking at the time, it's almost time. Jiang Pingji took a sip of fragrant tea and smiled like a fox. Jing Rong will not let me down. Wei Ci stayed at the side with mixed feelings. In both previous lives, Yang Si had not been able to get rid of his lord. It was clearly fate. Time is still too short. Wei Ci could not help but say something good for Yang Si. If Yang Si did not achieve the expected goal, he hoped that Jiang Pingji would be lenient. After all, Yang Si was already pitiful enough. He had been unexpectedly sent to Hu County by Jiang Pingji for several years. He had been dealing with Su Pei's elite, Han Yu, all year round. Now he had to lead troops from thousands of miles away to help Qinzhou. Not only did he have to be fast and efficient, but he also had to do it quietly so that the news would not reach Huang Song's ears in advance. He had not lived an easy life in this life. He never expected that before Yang Xi's news came, the messenger from the Nie family of Zhongzhou had already arrived. Fortunately, the messenger from the Yi family of Beiyuan is still on the way. Otherwise, when the two families meet, it will be a bloody battlefield. Meng Zhan had asked for it. He had promised Songzhou to 2 big shots, and then he had given Songzhou to a third person. Chapter 1087. Although the Azura arena had yet to take place, the emissary from the Nie clan was about to explode with rage. Meng Zhan wrote a letter to the Nie family in Bianzhou, Zhongzhou. On one hand, he criticized the current situation, analyzed the general trend of the world, and pointed out the current shortage of the Nie family. On the other hand, he confessed the predicament the Meng family was in. After much persuasion, they finally proposed the terms of the deal. As long as the Nie clan gave the Meng clan protection and other benefits, the Meng clan would give up Songzhou. Once they had Songzhou, it meant that they would have a strong base to produce horses. Rather than saying that this was an equal exchange between the two families, it was more accurate to say that the Meng family was using Songzhou as a bargaining chip in exchange for the Nie family's protection. The Nie clan was located in Zhongzhou, but they were also concerned about the situation of the various countries. The Meng clan of Songzhou had been declining in recent years, and their influence was indeed not as great as it used to be. If the Meng family was just an ordinary landowning family, they could simply find a feudal lord to rely on or abide by the law, and they would not be affected. Unfortunately, the Meng family controlled Songzhou, and the Songzhou horse farm was a big cake that everyone coveted. Even if the Meng family behaved themselves, Chaoyang would find trouble with them and drag them into the whirlpool of the world struggle. After thinking about all this, the Nie clan didn't doubt Meng Zhan's letter. They immediately sent their elite disciples to Zhanjiang Pass as messengers. Who would have thought that when they showed the token that Meng Zhan had given them, the guard of Zhanjiang would make all sorts of excuses? The emissary of the Nie clan was keenly aware that something was wrong. He secretly sent someone to inquire about the situation inside the pass. "You're going too far." Meng Zhan begged the Mengs for help like a stray dog, but now he's changed his mind. Is the Mengs really a pushover? The royal family of Zhongzhou no longer existed. Currently, there were many feudal vassals standing side by side. Among them, the Nie family was the strongest. The Nie clan's advantages and disadvantages were obvious. If they could take Songzhou, it would be of great strategic importance to them. Song Prefecture's horse farm was vast and rich in warhorses. The quality of the warhorses was comparable to that of the northern borderline. Zhanjiang Pass was Dongqing's natural stronghold. The terrain was extremely steep, making it easy to defend and difficult to attack. If the Nie family could obtain Songzhou, it would mean that Zhanjiang Pass would be useless. The Nie family could use Songzhou as a stepping stone to develop their troops and conquer the hinterland of Dongqing. This was the second reason. What about now? All the sweet dreams had turned into smoke. The Nie family had been fooled by Meng Zhan. The envoy from the Nie clan was furious. His cousin frowned and said hesitantly, it might not be Meng Zhan who sent them out of Songzhou. They only heard that the 3 counties of Song Prefecture were divided between the Huang and Lu families. Apart from that, they did not hear anything else. Perhaps the Huang and Lu families had joined hands to attack Songzhou? The corner of the Nie clan's messenger's mouth twitched. He looked at his cousin as if he was an idiot. If Meng Zhan hadn't surrendered voluntarily or sent him out of Songzhou, the war would have affected Zhanjiang Pass. We would have had to transfer troops. But when we stayed at Zhanjiang Pass for several days, the soldiers here were not sick or injured, and there were no signs of fighting near the pass. It can be seen that Huang Song did not waste a single soldier in taking Zhanjiang Pass. The man nodded and said, so, we've been tricked by Meng Zhan. Only now did he react? The Nie clan envoys were speechless. We can't let this matter go so easily. If word of this gets out, the Nie family of Zhongzhou will lose its dignity. Losing face was one thing, but the key was that if they missed this opportunity, it would be more difficult for the Nie family to touch the land of Dongqing. While the power in Songzhou was not stable, The Nie family could take the opportunity to pressure the border Zhanjiang Pass and form an alliance with the Huang and Lu families. Let's send a letter to Bianzhou and see what the Lord decides. The Nie clan envoy's letter was sent back to the country. The Nie clan had the same idea as them. Even if they couldn't get the whole Zhangzhou, they had to get Meng County. If the soft approach didn't work, they could use the hard approach. Huang Song and Lu Shi's power was not stable. Could they still hold Zhanjiang Pass? After receiving the order, the Nie clan envoys were full of confidence. They put pressure on the general guarding Zhanjiang Pass. They had used tough diplomatic language. Huang Song couldn't continue to pretend to be deaf and dumb. He could only send people to welcome the envoys into Zhangzhou. The leader of the Nie clan envoys was a direct descendant of the Nie clan. His surname was Nie, and his name was Liang. He was in his 30s. He was elegant and elegant. He wore a black Confucian robe with a thin coat over it. It was the standard attire of an aristocrat. On the right of Nie Liang stood a man in green with a warm temperament. He looked thin and charming. He was also a dragon among men. If the viewers in the live broadcast room were to give them a score, it would be at least 85, if not more than 90 points. Not only were they good-looking, but their temperament was not something ordinary people could learn. They could be recognized in a crowd. Huang Song was a man who liked good looks. He knew that the two of them represented the Nie clan of Zhongzhou. But when he saw their faces, he had a good impression of them. Nie Liang didn't chat with Huang Song for long. He directly expressed his intention. He took out Meng Zhan's letter and reminded Huang Song of one thing. Meng Zhan had promised Zhangzhou to the Nie clan of Zhongzhou. This land was theirs. Huang Song had no problem taking it, but he had to weigh his own bones. He had to see if he could protect Zhangzhou. Instead of the two clans fighting, it was better to be sensible and leave Zhangzhou. Otherwise, they would fight each other. Nie Liang's words were tactful, but Huang Song acted like he didn't understand and tried to change the topic. Sir, you have traveled a long way from Zhongzhou. You must be tired. Why don't you let me be the host? Sir, you can rest in your bed. As for what you mentioned, I don't know the inside story. I will give you an explanation after I find out. Nie Liang narrowed his eyes and agreed with a faint smile on his face as if he was a jack of all trades evasive words. He wanted to see what other tricks Huang Song had up his sleeve. They could also use this time to understand the situation in Zhangzhou. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Huang Song stood up to see him off. Just as he left the main tent, Nie Liang saw a familiar figure. Ah Sun. He was surprised. He turned to Huang Song and asked, "Is that Qingyun?" Huang Song was also surprised. "Sir, you know Qingyun?" On the other side, Nie Sun also found someone who shouldn't be in Zhangzhou. Nie Liang said, "Liang and Qingyun are classmates in the family school. Of course we know each other." After he finished speaking, Nie Sun came forward to greet him. Huang Song then remembered that Nie Sun was the adopted son of the Nie family in Zhongzhou. It was possible that he knew the Nie family's envoy. Nie Liang said to Nie Sun, "I heard from my uncle that you came to Dongqing to look for your relatives. You haven't returned for many years. Have you found your relatives now?" Nie Sun smiled bitterly. "It's hard to explain. I didn't mean to hide it. It's really hard to tell." Nie Liang knew he had his reasons. He didn't probe further and asked in private. The next day, Huang Song hosted a banquet for the Nie family's envoy and sent an invitation to Jiang Pingji. Jiang Pingji accepted it gladly. It would be a waste not to eat a free meal. But she realized that after the banquet started, Wei Xi's gaze kept drifting toward the Nie family's envoy. Is there a beauty or a peerless beauty over there that makes Zixiao restless? Chapter 1088. Wei Ci was caught red-handed by Jiang Pingji. Listening to her sarcastic words, he felt a little funny in his heart. He said, "My lord, I seem to have seen my eldest brother." "Eldest brother?" Jiang Pingji asked in surprise. "Isn't Zixiao the only son?" Wei Ci smiled bitterly and said, "Of course not. I have two eldest brothers. My eldest brother is 5 years older than me. To me, he is like a brother and a father. Because of his birth date, Wei Ci was despised by the Wei clan. If Master Yuanjing had not stopped him, the weeds on Wei Ci's grave would have changed a few times. Although he survived, he was abandoned by the clan at a young age. Life was hard and he had a cold body. Even so, there were people who treated Wei Ci well, such as his eldest brother, Wei Cheng. Wei Ci's initiation was even helped by him. Jiang Pengji asked curiously, "Where is he?" Not only was Jiang Pengji curious, but the audience in the streaming room was also very curious. Looking at Beauty Ci's appearance and temperament, one could tell how good the genes of the Wei family were. Wei Ci's elder brother was certainly not bad. Jiang Pengji could not look for him openly, but the audience did not have such concerns. They could not wait to pull out everyone in the tent to take a look. Wuxia er Xiao Long Bao, I found him. Look at this, isn't it? Except for the Nye family's diplomatic group, everyone knows him. Fireworks era. Are you kidding me? Didn't Huang Song introduce his name at the beginning of the banquet? His name is Nye Liang? Chiwe Bo He, #propping chin. Nye Liang is such a good name. I also like Nye Liang. Feng Shui Wuhan, you missed one person. Does the man beside Nye Liang look like him? I bet a spicy stick that it's definitely him. The audience searched carefully. Jiang Pengji also found a suspicious target. She turned to ask Wei Ci. The one beside Nye Liang? Wei Ci nodded and said, "That's my elder brother." Jiang Pengji said expressionlessly, It's not the Shuraba, but it's better than the Shuraba." Wei Ci did not understand, but seeing Jiang Pengji's expression, he did not ask further. It was certainly not an important matter. He didn't understand, but the audience did. Shen Jia, Nye Sun and Meng Heng are brothers. Feng Ju and Feng Jin are brothers. Wei Ci and Wei Dan are brothers. Nye Sun even knows Nye Liang. They're not brothers, but they're more like brothers. They're from 3 different camps. Brothers stabbing each other's hearts. Isn't that the Shuraba? Mo's Hang Yunxiu, #picknose. So, the struggle in troubled times is a disguised fight between relatives? Wei Ci's gaze was too obvious. Wei Yong, who was on the other side, also noticed his presence. A look of astonishment flashed across her eyes. "Zi Shun, did you meet an acquaintance?" Nye Liang held a wine goblet in his hand as he looked at the dancers dancing below the banquet. His body tilted slightly towards Wei Yong. It seems to be the youngest brother. Wei Ci was not very sure. It was dark inside the tent and Wei Ci was quite far away from him, so he could not see clearly. "Is he the younger brother that you always talk about, Wei Ci? Why is he here?" Nye Liang frowned. If Wei Ci was here, he would either be in Huang Song's camp or Lu Shi's camp. This was not good news. "I heard you say that he stayed in Langyi alone to study?" Considering his age, Zi Xiao should be over 27 this year. Wei Yong had a fitting smile on his face. He's always had his own ideas and is very stubborn. Whether it's Huang Song or Lu Shi, they both have their strengths and weaknesses. It's not impossible for Zi Xiao to choose one of them to become an official. The Wei family of Langyi was in decline. They had no choice but to move out of Langyi County and seek refuge with the Wei family in Zhongzhao's Bianzhou. Everyone shared the same ancestor. Even if they had to live under someone else's roof, it was better than their family declining. Only Wei Ci did not agree and insisted on staying. As a last resort, the Wei family could only leave Wei Ci with some money and let him run his own course. They had not received any news from him all these years. As they talked, Nye Liang secretly inspected the people in the tent, as if trying to find out which younger brother of Wei Yong was. Wei Ci's appearance was outstanding. He would be the most conspicuous in a crowd. Naturally, it was easy to find him. "From the looks of it, your precious younger brother has chosen Lu Shi to become an official." Nye Liang smiled. His eyebrows and eyes are somewhat similar to Zi Shun's. Wei Yong was not surprised by the result. He was rather curious about Jiang Pengji, who was in the limelight. Jiang Pengji's reputation was great in Dongqing. Outside of Dongqing's territory, others would always question the rumors about her. How could a woman be so valiant? Suspicion was bound to be accompanied by contempt. Although Nie Liang and Wei Yong did not belittle her, they were also dubious. Rumors could not be completely trusted, not to mention rumors that were spread by word of mouth and were seriously distorted. It was easy to find Wei Ci in the main tent, but it was even easier to find Jiang Pingji. She was the only red flower among the green leaves in the tent. The atmosphere of the banquet was just right. After 3 rounds of wine, Nie Liang once again brought up the issue of the ownership of Cangzhou. Huang Song laughed and laughed, but Jiang Pingji said, "The words of a living person don't carry much weight, let alone the words of a dead person. It's been a while since the 7th day of Meng Zhan's death. If he was faster, he might have already drunk Meng Po's soup and crossed the bridge of helplessness. Dead people tell no tales." Nie Liang's expression suddenly darkened. Without waiting for him to speak, Wei Ci, who was beside him, helped to add. Compared to Jiang Pingji's angry tone, his words were much more polite, but also irritating. Meng Zhan is a criminal who killed the emperor, and he is the eternal sinner of Dongqing. How can the Mengs call themselves the ruler of Cangzhou? This is the first reason. The royal family trusts the Mengs, which is why the Mengs are allowed to stay in Cangzhou. After all, the Mengs are still the subjects of the royal family, not the ruler. This is the second reason. Meng Zhan has no right to decide the ownership of Cangzhou. Even if the letter in the messenger's hand is real, the people of Cangzhou will not recognize it. Even if the royal family had been killed by Meng Zhan, Wei Ci would still use him as a shield. Nie Liang looked expressionless, but he was secretly giving Wei Yong a look. Wei Yong's younger brother was indeed not a good person. He was stabbed by his brother before they even recognized each other. Such brotherly love was really tearful. If that's the case, Magistrate Lu and Magistrate Huang want to push the blame and refuse to acknowledge the debt, right? Jiang Pingji shook the wine bottle gently and leaned against the table. You can't say that. The person who owes the debt is Meng Zhan, not me or Bogeo. As the saying goes, every debt has its debtor. If the Nyes want to collect the debt, they have to find a creditor. If they are quick, they can find a master to summon the soul. The world is in chaos now, and the road to the underworld is blocked. Maybe Meng Zhan hasn't had the time to reincarnate. It's hard to say. Nie Liang was speechless. He heard that Lu Shi was born in a gentry family, but he didn't expect to meet him in person and act like a hooligan. He was so persistent that it was unheard of. Wei Ci, who was beside him, noticed his brother Wei Yong's gaze. He didn't want to delve into the deeper meaning of that gaze, so he simply closed his eyes and pretended to be dead. If that's the case, Magistrate Lu and Magistrate Huang don't want to give up Cangzhou? Jiang Pingji smiled faintly. I am from Dongqing. How can I betray my country? She wouldn't even give up a small hut, let alone Cangzhou. It was really asking the wrong person to talk to her about the issue of territory. Jiang Pingji's eyes were burning. She wasn't afraid at all. Huang Song, who was the temporary owner of Cangzhou, became a foil. He stayed at the side and cheered for Jiang Pingji. Chapter 1089. The magistrate of Liuzhou is loyal to the emperor and loves his country. Liang is impressed. Even though his heart was in turmoil, Nie Liang remained calm on the surface. It was as if he did not notice Jiang Pingji's arrogance and fearlessness. He had seen many such stubborn people, but in the face of absolute profit, even the gentry would bow down. As the saying goes, it's easy to invite a god in, but it's hard to send him away. The Nie family had already entered the game. How could they leave empty-handed? The current situation was clear. Cangzhou was too big, and the people who coveted it were too strong. Whether it was Huang Song or Lu Shi, they could not defend Cangzhou with their individual strength. Not only could they not defend it, but they would also get themselves killed. Instead of being greedy and occupying the entire Cangzhou, they might as well retreat in order to advance and give some of the benefits to the Nie family. They could gain the most benefits with the least amount of effort. Nie Liang smiled faintly and bowed with his hands folded in front. It seemed like a compliment, but the smile on his lips was meaningful. Loyal to the emperor and love his country? As the most powerful feudal lord in Dongqing, Jiang Pingji obviously had an army. The words loyal to the emperor and love his country were a mockery. Jiang Pengji would smile faintly and raise the wine bottle in her right hand to toast Liang, shamelessly accepting his compliment. You flatter me. Even though the royal family is declining, it is my duty to defend the land and protect the people. I dare not forget it for a moment. So what if she was a rebel and a traitor who had an army? Jiang Pengji asked herself if she was worthy of the land under her feet and the people living on it. That was enough. Furthermore, what the Nie family had done in Zhongzhou was no better than what she had done. The two were about the same. Did the crow want to laugh at the pig? Jiang Pengji was about to expose the Nie family's past. Wei Ci saw her eyes turn cold. His heart skipped a beat. He could vaguely guess what she wanted to say. If she really said it, wouldn't she offend the Nie family? Wei Ci secretly tugged on Jiang Pengji's sleeve. She seemed to feel it and swallowed the words she was about to say. I have something to say. If I offended you in any way, please forgive me. Before Liang could say anything threatening, Wei Ci smiled and continued Jiang Pengji's words. Birds of a feather flock together. Forgive me for my rudeness, but a traitor like Meng Zhan is rare in the world. This person did not think of the emperor's kindness and preyed on the people, causing the people under his rule to have no way to live. For his own personal gain, he actually betrayed Sangzhou. In the future, he would be recorded in the history books as a treacherous official who would go down in infamy for thousands of years. Ci had heard that the Nie family of Zhongzhou was a truly noble and distinguished family. They had been around for hundreds of generations and had nurtured countless sages and famous scholars, celebrities and capable officials. With such a powerful family background, how could he collude with those treacherous officials and villains for the sake of temporary benefits? Jiang Pengji was in charge of acting like a hooligan, while Wei Ci was in charge of adding insult to injury. With the two of them working together, wouldn't those with weaker mental endurance be angered to the point of vomiting blood? Wei Yong, who was sitting next to Liang, did not make a sound from beginning to end, but a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. His memory of Wei Ci was still stuck at 8 or 9 years ago. The youth, who was barely in his 20s, was like an old monk, calm and uninteresting. Now that they met again, he seemed a little sharper. From the looks of it, he had experienced many things over the years and matured quite a bit. Wei Yong's heart was filled with the feeling of having a younger brother who had just grown up. He smiled and said, "This sounds reasonable, but it's sophistry." Huang Song took the opportunity to shift his gaze to Wei Yong and asked in a seemingly surprised manner, "This is?" Liang said, "This is Liang's close friend. His surname is Wei, his given name is Yong, and his courtesy name is Zixuan." Hearing Wei Yong's name and courtesy name, everyone in the tent could not help but shift their gaze to Wei Ci. Whether it was their surname, first name, or courtesy name, they looked like brothers no matter how they looked at it. Faintly, everyone felt that they had grasped the truth. This was another pair of plastic brothers. Huang Song said with a smile, "How is it sophistry? I heard that Mr. Zixiao is very reasonable." Wei Yong said, "Now that there are 5 countries in the world, Nanxing has been destroyed, the 4 factions of Nanman are vainly trying to overthrow the orthodoxy, Dongqing's royal family is declining, and Zhongzhou is not far behind. The remaining Beiyuan and Xichang are in turmoil within their borders. China is divided, feudal lords are rising, barbarian horses are trampling, and rebellious officials are domineering. This is the sign of a chaotic world. At present, only the arrival of the Holy Emperor can turn the tide and help the Xia kingdom. People say that those who speak benevolently die, while those who are ambitious and ruthless prosper. I also despise Meng Zhan's actions. However, are the people guilty? My lord has no other intentions, he just wants to protect the innocent people and prevent them from being plunged into misery and suffering. The district magistrate also said that protecting the people is part of his duty. As long as it can protect the people, why can't I sacrifice myself?" As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the tent was like a cold current rushing through, and the temperature dropped by several degrees. Jiang Pengji restrained her frivolous attitude, and there was a hint of sternness in her eyes. "This gentleman is really eloquent," Wei Yong replied calmly, Every word and sentence is from the bottom of my heart. Who would believe that? Although she was choked back, Jiang Pingji was not embarrassed or annoyed. Instead, she revealed a calm smile as if she did not care. The atmosphere in the tent indirectly affected the audience in the streaming room. When Jiang Pingji displayed her hooligan attitude, many fans and fangirls cheered for her crazily. This was the streamer they were familiar with, who would make people cry at the slightest disagreement. Jiang Pingji and Wei Ci, their tacit understanding was too high. They were indeed the most popular couple in the streaming room. Jieshou Mei Shu, can a language class representative translate this young man's words? I feel that his words are strange. After following the streaming for so many years, they realized that the people in the streaming room usually conversed in the vernacular, not the pure classical Chinese that they had imagined. Even so, on certain occasions, their dialogue was still very difficult to listen to. Music Xiangying, Brother Wei's words are not difficult to understand. To put it simply, this young man trampled on the streamer and supported the Nie family. Now that the world is in chaos, those who are capable will be in charge. Whoever has the bigger fist can provide security and protection for the people. Although the streamer is strong, she can't protect the people of Cangzhou. She can't give the people absolute security, but the Nie family can, so the streamer shouldn't stop the people from pursuing happiness? Guangxia Moshi, the streamer raised the flag of national righteousness, and the integrity of the territory cannot be invaded. Brother Wei retorted from the perspective of the people. The people are innocent. If the streamer forced them, it would be heartless, and she would slap herself in the mouth. The streamer has met her opponent with her mouth. The audience watched with relish, but Jiang Pingji's fangirls were unwilling. Industrial design. What are you saying? Our streamer's influence is also very strong, okay? Yusue Jueo, you can't say that. The Nie family's influence in Zhongzhou is also strong. The point is that the streamer just attacked the north borderline, and before she could catch her breath, she brought troops to attack the Meng family. After a long war, the more she fights, the more her vitality will be damaged. Since the beginning of the war, the streamer has been fighting for a year and 4 months, and her vitality has been seriously damaged. The current situation is very complicated. Apart from the pressure from outside the borders, there is also Huang Song, the fake brother, who is watching covetously within the borders. In this aspect, the streamer is really not as good as the Nie family at protecting the people. Chapter 1090. The banquet ended on a sour note. Everyone knew that it was just a probing confrontation. No one had revealed their bottom line. The Nie family didn't want to take over the whole of Cangzhou. They asked for Cangzhou right from the start to make it easier to bargain later. It was the same logic as asking for a sky-high price and asking for a bargain on the ground. It was a negotiation. It was impossible to set a fixed price right from the start. They didn't know that Jiang Pingji's thought process was different from normal people. She wasn't probing. Her bottom line was to not lose an inch of land. The Nie family wanted to take over Cangzhou so that they could get their hands on the land of Dongqing in the future. If the Nie family succeeded, Zhanjiang Pass, a natural barrier, would be destroyed. The Nie family could attack and defend. With such a neighbor, who could sleep at night? Jiang Pingji was the greediest. She planned to take over the whole of Cangzhou. Huang Song was more optimistic. He and Jiang Pingji would split the cake. The Nie family would get out of the way. The Nie family's bottom line was the lowest. The Nie family, Jiang Pingji, and Huang Song shared Cangzhou. Looking at the situation, it seemed that Jiang Pingji's ambition was the greatest. In fact, it was not. The Nie family's ambition was the most obscure and strong. The Nie family is so unforgiving. If the Yi family of Beiyuan gets involved, won't they turn the world upside down? Huang Song drank the hangover soup and forced himself to calm down. The plan now is to continue watching and helping each other with Lanting. Only then can we stabilize the situation and prevent the Nie family from acting rashly. Although he and Jiang Pingji were plastic siblings, they were barely family. The Nie family was an outsider. Rather than letting outsiders take advantage of them, it was best for family to share the cake. This situation was also Meng Zhan's arrangement before he died. He didn't want outside forces to intervene. The alliance between Huang Song and Jiang Pingji couldn't be broken. Little did they know that Jiang Pingji had her own plans. Zixiao. After the banquet, Wei Si and the others followed behind Jiang Pingji and prepared to return home. They heard a familiar voice before they got far. Wei Si smiled and stepped forward. He bowed to Jiang Pingji and the others as if the verbal battle was fake. "Big brother." Wei Si returned the greeting. His expression was equally calm, as if they were an ordinary pair of brothers. Jiang Pingji secretly glanced at the two of them and said plainly, "You brothers haven't seen each other for many years. I'm afraid you have a lot to talk about. I won't disturb your reunion. Just one thing, Zixiao's body is weak. I'm afraid that you can't stay up late and tire yourself out. It's almost time, remember to rest early." Having said that, Jiang Pingji gave the space to the brothers and brought the others back to the house. Wei Dan looked at Jiang Pingji's back and narrowed his eyes meaningfully. There was some scrutiny in his eyes. He was well aware of his younger brother's ambition. Wei Si had chosen Jiang Pingji to become an official because he had pinned his ambitions on her. The divine prefecture was unified, and the rivers were clear and the seas were peaceful. Could this person fulfill Zixiao's expectations? Long time no see. Zixiao, do you want to meet up with me? Today we'll only talk about private matters, not official ones. Wei Si smiled and said, "How would I dare to reject eldest brother's invitation? Please." The two of them walked side by side. Wei Si and Wei Dan chatted as they walked. They talked about their experiences over the years when they were separated and about their family members. Before the Wei family of Langya migrated, Wei Dan was already married. His sister-in-law gave birth to a son and a daughter. Now there were 2 more sons and a daughter. Speaking of this, Wei Dan could not help but be concerned about his younger brother's marriage. Wei Si was 27 this year, not 17. If he did not have a wife, he could use his birth date as an excuse, but he did not even have a concubine to warm his bed. Wei Dan could not help but suspect that there was something wrong with his body. However, Wei Si had his own views since he was young. He liked to be a bachelor, so Wei Dan could not force him to be a matchmaker. "Everything is fine at home, but I haven't heard from you for many years. Father misses you very much. If you're free, write him a letter." Wei Si's birth date was unlucky. When he was born, his mother died of a hemorrhage due to childbirth. Therefore, Father Wei was very disgusted with his youngest son. For many years, he did not care about him. The relationship between father and son was very thin. He did not know if it was because he was old, but Wei Dan could occasionally see his father looking at Wei Si's childhood portrait in the study. His words were filled with regret. Wei Si nodded. "Yes. Your eldest nephew is set to marry the eldest daughter of the Guangshan family. When the girl reaches marriageable age, they will get married. As his youngest uncle, don't let them wait too long." Wei Dan could not help but complain. No matter how good it was to be a bachelor, one could not be a bachelor for life. If you really can't do it, why don't you choose a nephew to adopt? Wei Dan had 3 sons and 2 daughters. The youngest was still learning how to speak. Rather than letting Wei Si choose a child from a side branch of the clan, which would alienate him by blood, it was better to choose one of his nephews and raise him as his own. Wei Si was speechless. What did he mean by "he really can't do it"? What did he mean by "can't do it"? To Wei Si, Wei Dan was both a brother and a father. In his previous life, he had introduced many blind dates to him. In the end, he had no choice but to adopt his youngest son so that Wei Si would not have anyone to rely on. Wei Si was also tempted at that time, but his sister-in-law refused, so he gave up. "I appreciate eldest brother's good intentions, but I'm afraid that sister-in-law will not agree to this. It's not good to separate sister-in-law from her nephew, right?" Once adopted, the child could only call his biological mother eldest aunt. Which mother would be willing? Wei Dan was startled and could only dispel the idea resentfully. Wei Si calmly changed the topic and did not talk about adoption. "Eldest brother is now assisting Liang?" Wei Dan smiled faintly. "Yes, Guangshan is not bad. If they did not have a good relationship, Wei Dan and Niel Yang would not have become in-laws. Wei Ci closed his eyes and did not reply. In his previous life, Wei Ci knew Niel Yang and met him a few times through Wei Dan. The Nie family was able to suppress the other feudal lords of Zhongzhou because of this person. But Niel Yang's final outcome was not good. In his previous life, the Nie family was able to expand rapidly. Most of the credit was due to the Nie family's genius, Niel Yang. Later on, it was due to Sun Wen that they dominated. Although the Nie family was full of talents, the family was not as united as an iron bucket. Struggles between the heirs were common. As the Nie family's influence in Zhongzhou grew, the struggles between the heirs became more and more intense. Niel Yang died before he was 35. He died in the family's infighting, and all his children were implicated. Looking at the time, Niel Yang should be close. In this life, if the Nie family killed Niel Yang, would there be a late bloomer, Sun Wen to turn the tide? Countless thoughts flashed through Wei Ci's mind, but there was no change in his expression. Even though he knew that Niel Yang's death would make his eldest brother Wei Dan depressed for life, Wei Ci had no intention of reminding him. After talking for a while, Wei Ci saw that the sky outside the tent was getting dark and offered to take his leave. Wei Dan did not urge him to stay. Instead, he got up to send him off. After sending Wei Ci off, Wei Dan turned to return to the house. Hearing about him is not as good as meeting him in person. Your younger brother is a dragon among men. Niel Yang said with pity. Why did he stay in Langya back then? Wei Dan said, I don't know. He did not say the reason. Chapter 1091. Maybe it's because I've been too tired recently and I'm not acclimatized to the climate. I'll get better naturally after this period. Niel Yang rubbed the tip of his sore and cold nose and resisted the urge to sneeze. His eyes were bloodshot. Wei Yong asked hesitantly, Did you really drink the medicine prescribed by the doctor? Niel Yang's hand paused. Thinking of the black medicine, he could not help but feel bitterness in his mouth and stomach acid. Although he quickly restrained his emotions, it did not escape Wei Yong's observation. Thinking of his best friend's temper, Wei Yong's lowered eyebrows could not help but twitch twice. Niel Yang was an adult in his 30s, not just 3 years old. Not only was he afraid of bitterness, he even did the stupid thing of secretly pouring away the medicine. I'll go down now and ask someone to make another bowl. Guangshan, drink it before you rest. Wei Yong was more or less like a mother, especially Wei Yong, who was afraid of bitterness and poured away the medicine, causing his illness to be prolonged. No matter how minor an illness was, once it was dragged on for a long time, it would still become a serious illness. Niel Yang smiled helplessly. I'd better not drink this medicine. There's no effect after drinking it for so long. I'm suffering for nothing. Wei Yong stopped in his tracks and said with a serious expression, If that's the case, I'll ask the doctor to come over and take a look at you again. If it doesn't work, we'll change the prescription? Either drink the medicine or ask the doctor to come over and prescribe a more indescribable prescription. Niel Yang decisively chose the former. At the same time, Wei Ci stepped on the moonlight and returned to his residence. It was dark in the room. He took out a match from his sleeve and lit the oil lamp in the dark. With the help of the orange candlelight, Wei Ci vaguely saw a strange black shadow protruding from the bed, as if there was a person lying on it. Who's there? The candlelight crackled. Wei Ci shouted at the bed. The black shadow with its back facing him finally turned around. Oh, Zixiao is only back now? Jiang Pengji hugged something in her arms and muttered as she got up. If you didn't come back, this thing of yours would have been caught and cooked. Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. If it wasn't for the servants who brought it back, it might have been gone. Wei Ci knew who it was the moment he heard the voice. He felt relieved and continued to light other candles. The dark room gradually became brighter. Because Jiang Pingji got up, the black and white meatball, which had finally fallen asleep, groaned in dissatisfaction and opened its big watery eyes. Smelling a familiar scent, it stretched out its 2 meaty claws in Wei Ci's direction, as if asking for a hug and a kiss. Tiske, this thing has become a spirit. You even dare to rob my people. Jiang Pingji mercilessly poked the black and white meatball's forehead, causing it to roll on the ground. My lord, are you still jealous of animals? Wei Si was amused. He raised his hand and scooped up the little fellow. Although he was the one who raised it, it was usually taken care of by the servants or logisticians. The food it ate every day was even more sumptuous than the lord. He was a treasure in the army. It's fun to eat it once in a while. How is your family in Zhongzhou doing? Jiang Pingji yawned. Her cheeks were flushed due to her deep sleep, which made her look more feminine and naive. Wei Si's heart warmed. He smiled faintly and said, "Thank you for your concern, my lord. I heard that eldest brother is working for the Nie family. They must be doing well." Nie Liang was a direct descendant of the Nie family. Now, the Nie family valued him greatly. As his right-hand man, Wei Si's status was naturally not low. Relying on this relationship, the relatives who sought refuge with the Wei family in Bianzhou would not be living too badly. My lord has waited here for so long. Is it just to ask this? Because of his previous life's mistakes, Wei Si did not want to be too deeply involved with the Wei family. He only wanted to maintain a superficial friendship. In front of Jiang Pingji, he did not want to mention the Wei family. Jiang Pingji shook her head. Of course it's not just one thing. I have another surprise. I have no one to share it with, so after thinking about it, I still came to find Zixiao. Wei Si pondered in his heart and carefully recalled what had happened recently. After thinking about it, there was only one thing that could make his lord so happy. Is there news from Jing Rong's side? Jiang Pingji smiled and nodded. Zixiao's thoughts are exquisite. Nothing can escape your control. Jing Rong led his troops to Qinzhou. He also treacherously plotted against Su Bei's forces to confuse Bogeo's spies in Qinzhou. Now that he has succeeded, shouldn't he be eager to claim credit? These days, she had endured and pretended that nothing had happened. Wasn't it all for this good news? Fortunately, Yang Si did not let her down. He successfully completed this plan of crossing the sea by deceiving everyone and crossing the sea in secret. Otherwise, Yang Si could not blame her. Yang Si, who was thinking of a way to cross the river Song, sneezed. His cold snot dripped down. He hurriedly took out a handkerchief to cover his nose. It's the middle of the night. Who's talking? Yang Si pinched his nose and suddenly felt the air freshen up. The tanned and burly Dian Yen carefully brought in a bowl of pitch-black medicinal concoction. Military counselor, I'm coming in. Yang Si hid the handkerchief and sniffed, suppressing the moisture that surged from the corners of his eyes. There was no need to mention how terrible it was to catch a cold at this time. His body was uncomfortable and his mood was not bright. Dian Yen stepped into the tent. His burly body made the tent feel cramped and cramped. He carefully brought the medicinal concoction to Yang Si's table. Military counselor, I've also found some candied plums for you. Each one has a thick coating of honey. They're absolutely sweet. Yang Si carefully took a sip. The unpleasant medicinal concoction spread in his mouth. His entire face scrunched up. Candied plums, candied plums. Yang Si randomly grabbed a handful and threw 2 into his mouth. It took him a while to suppress the bitterness. His tightly furrowed brows gradually relaxed. Is there any news from the secret agents? After drinking half a bowl of medicine, his dizzy head felt better. Yang Si's violent temper also became much milder. Dian Yen said, the secret agents from the front lines have sent news that the Nie family's emissaries have entered the pass. I'm afraid they're up to no good. Yang Si chewed on the candied plums and said vaguely, our lord has an unyielding temperament. No matter how bad the Nie family's intentions are, it'll be difficult to get anything out of her hands. Has the manpower been accounted for? We'll cross the Song River tomorrow. We must arrive at Meng County in Sangzhou before the Nie family makes trouble. Dian Yen hesitated and asked, military counselor, if we only bring 2,000 elites into Sangzhou, once Huang Song makes trouble for us, our lord dares to bring 5,000 elites into Sangzhou, but we're not like our lord. Bringing 2,000 is already more than enough. If we didn't have to pressure the Nie family's emissaries, we wouldn't have brought these 2,000 people. Yang Si smiled. Even if Huang Song had 3 times the courage, he wouldn't dare to kill his acquaintances at this time. The relationship between Huang Song and the Lord was no different from being interdependent. The two could only form an alliance. If Huang Song dared to play tricks to assassinate the Lord, the Nye family would definitely take the opportunity to kill him. At that time, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Huang Song's own life would be in danger. What was he after? Moreover, if we transfer too many troops, Yang Xi's eyes were cold. He pointed in the direction of Zhe County. I'm afraid that someone will take advantage of the situation. Quanzhou was empty of troops. If there weren't enough troops to hold the fort, who knew whether the evil Han Yu would take the opportunity to stab them? Dian Yen was frightened. This can't be right? In order to help the Lord stabilize the rear, Yang Xi and Dian Yen formed an alliance with Su Bei from Zhe County as representatives. The two forces had frequent contact. Because of the loser's yearning for the top student, Dian Yen respected Han Yu. Yang Xi sneered. Why not? The alliance is not a long-term plan. It's just a paper agreement that can be torn apart at any time. Chapter 1092. Dian Yen was speechless. He had been ordered around by Yang Xi for many years. He had long understood a fact. Although these strategists had learned the essence of 100 schools of thought, they used words like, sincerity is the beginning and end of an object. If not, there is nothing. Therefore, a gentleman's sincerity is precious. These words taught others to be honest and trustworthy. When it came to themselves, each of them was better than the other. They changed their attitude faster than flipping a book. What was sincerity? Who and what was the covenant? When it was useful, it was as solid as a rock. Once it was no longer useful, it was too crude to be used to wipe one's ass. Dian Yen thought of Yang Xi and Han Yu. These two regarded each other as bosom friends. Why did they stab each other in the back? Indeed, as a martial artist, he could not understand the friendship between scholars. If that's the case, won't the Lord be in danger? Dian Yen was anxious. His face revealed genuine concern. His Lord and Huang Song appeared harmonious on the surface but were actually at odds. If Su Bei took the opportunity to cause trouble, wouldn't the Lord be faced with enemies on both sides? Yang Xi frowned as he drank the rest of the medicine. Only the sweet candied fruit could soothe his injured taste buds. The Lord is in danger? It was as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Yang Xi had known Jiang Pingji for so many years. He had only seen her make others suffer. He had never seen anyone make her suffer. Meng Zhan was the first person to suffer, but his ending was obvious to all. Yang Xi did not think that his lord would fall here. Deputy Commander Dian, you are wrong. Our lord will not suffer any losses. Regarding this, Yang Xi was full of confidence. Before Meng Zhan died, he had laid out a dead end. It was obvious that he wanted to support Huang Song and Jiang Pingji to fight. He wanted to use this opportunity to exhaust her strength and make her suffer. Unexpectedly, Jiang Pingji reacted immediately. She dispatched Yang Xi to lead troops into Quanzhou. This was a dangerous move. If Yang Xi was incompetent or harbored other intentions, not only would she lose Quanzhou and Sangzhou, she might even lose Hu County. This was a complete and utter gamble. If she won the gamble, she would break out of this predicament. If she lost the gamble, her life would be in danger. Faced with such a huge risk, she had high hopes for Yang Xi. She did not have any unnecessary suspicions or doubts. Even Yang Xi could not help but be speechless with such trust and importance. My lord treats me as a scholar of the state, I shall repay him as a scholar of the state. Even though it was difficult, Yang Xi still lived up to his mission in the end. He seized every second to control the entire territory of Quanzhou and lived up to his trust. However, no matter how skilled Yang Xi was, he could not completely stop the spread of the news. At most, he could delay it for a while. Although the time was short, it was enough. Late at night on the third day, Huang Song was in the middle of a discussion with several of his trusted strategists. There was a faint noise and clamor coming from outside, but it didn't take long before it subsided. He frowned and asked, "What happened outside?" The contents of his discussion with his confidant were all confidential. If it was accidentally overheard by others, who knew how much damage it would cause? Not long after, a ragged beggar with unkempt hair was brought in. This person's appearance was extremely unkempt. His face was stained with filth and dried black blood. Only his eyes were still somewhat spirited. Reporting to my lord, I found a secret letter on this person. The deputy general who was guarding Huang Song stepped forward and said, holding a small bamboo slip that was less than the width of a palm with both hands. He claimed to be the deputy envoy of Qinzhou General Yuanan. I saw him acting suspiciously, so I sent people to arrest him. After arresting the suspicious person, this guy still shouted that he was the deputy envoy of Yuanan and said that he had something important to tell Huang Song in person. Yuanan? This person is under Commandant Yuanan? Huang Song's heart skipped a beat. He quickly grabbed the small bamboo slip and used his fingers to untie it. His palms were sweating because of nervousness and worry. He received a letter from Qinzhou at this time, and the messenger was a deputy envoy with a lame and disheveled appearance. This made him very uneasy. When Huang Song ordered someone to bring a lamp and use the candlelight to read the tiny words on the bamboo slip, the lame deputy envoy cried and begged for mercy. Greetings, my lord. The lame deputy envoy was originally quite strong, but in order to avoid Yang Xi's search, he had to disguise his identity. He ate the wind and drank dew every day, so he was extremely thin. His ragged clothes hung on his body. He cried and said, Commandant Yuan and ordered me to risk my life to deliver this secret letter, lest you fall into Lu Shi's trap. Lu Shi sent troops to attack Qinzhou and imprisoned Commandant Yuan. Cheng Jing and the others heard the commotion and quickly went forward to ask for details. Feng Zhu's face was very ugly, as if it had been painted black. Who on earth led troops to attack Qinzhou? What is the current situation of the general who was originally stationed in Qinzhou? Quickly tell me the truth that you know. Don't leave anything out. At this moment, countless thoughts whizzed through Feng Zhu's mind. Jiang Pingji's main force was still at the border of Qianyan County. She only brought 5,000 elites to be stationed outside Meng County. How could she have the strength to attack Qinzhou? Other than that, Qinzhou and Songzhou were neighbors, separated only by the Song River. If Qinzhou was in trouble, why did the news only arrive now? Before the lame deputy envoy could speak, Huang Song, who had already finished reading the secret letter, spoke with a livid face. There's no need to ask. Huai Jie will understand after reading this. He handed the secret letter with more than 100 tiny words to Feng Zhu. After Feng Zhu read it, he passed it to Cheng Jing and the others to read. Huang Song smiled bitterly and said, I can't believe we were counterattacked by Lanting. According to the forces on the surface, it was impossible for Jiang Pingji to take down Qinzhou without anyone knowing. Moreover, she planned it in the territory of Huang Song and the others. He did not expect that the other party had left a trump card in Hu County to avoid Huang Song and the others' attention. Feng Zhu frowned so hard that he could almost squeeze a fly to death. I never expected this person to be Yang Jingrong. Following the victory of the battle at the northern borderline, the reputation of the talents under Jiang Pingji's command was known to the world. The most outstanding strategist was undoubtedly Sun Wen. His origins were unknown and he was previously unknown. After the battle at the northern borderline, all the forces knew of him. There was no suspense in the military. Fu Wang was fully deserving of the top spot. No one could refute him. In comparison, Yang Xi and Dian Yen were invisible. Yang Xi was of humble origin. He had once served Prince Changshu, but before he could achieve much, he had jumped ship. Dian Yen was a bandit. Although he had brute strength and extraordinary combat power, he was not well versed in literature. It was impossible for him to lead an army alone. These two had been banished to Hu County by Jiang Pingji for many years. Their already insignificant presence was even smaller now. Apart from Su Bei's forces who had some understanding of these two, outsiders completely ignored them. They never expected that they would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Yang Jingrong? It's him, Yang Xi. Huang Song found the relevant memories in his mind. His expression became increasingly ugly. The relationship between Yang Si and Huang Song could only be described as an ill-fated relationship. Back then, when the royal family of Dongqing had just moved the capital to Qinzhou, Yang Si was still serving under Prince Changshu. With Feng Zhu's assistance, Huang Song made many military achievements. He led his troops and caused many problems for Prince Changshu. Chapter 1093. Not long after Yang Si assisted Prince Changshu, he jumped ship and kicked out his old boss. Yang Si, who had nowhere to go, went to Huang Song, who knew that the gatekeeper of Huang Song's mansion would look down on him and deliberately suppressed Yang Si's visiting card, making Yang Si wait in vain for a few days. Yang Si was proud and arrogant. He simply took his boy servant to Wanzhou and went to Wei Ci. He fell into a trap. It could be said that if the gatekeeper had not stopped him, Yang Si would have stayed in Huang Song's tent. But what happened? After a few years, Yang Si reenacted the scene from back then. He once again ruined Huang Song's plan and caused him to suffer. Fate was too wonderful for words. Memories of the past flashed through Huang Song's mind. The nerves at the corner of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. He owed Yang Si 1.8 million strings of coins in his previous life, didn't he? Why did he only take advantage of him? Qing Jing read the letter. His sword-like eyebrows furrowed as if they were about to form a knot. Nie Sun, who was beside him, had the same expression. Qinzhou had been taken away by Jiang Pingji. It would be difficult to get it back. He never expected her to be so bold. A trusted strategist in the tent said, "What does Lu Shi mean by this? Attacking Qinzhou without any regard for the alliance between the two families? The envoy from the Nie family of Zhongzhou is still in Sangzhou and is eyeing Sangzhou covetously. At this juncture, if the Huang and Lu families fight, it will benefit the enemy for no reason." Jiang Pingji seemed to be a bit rebellious, but her performance was considered good. She did not seem like a reckless person who disregarded the overall situation for her own benefit. At this moment, she suddenly attacked Qinzhou. Who would believe that she did not do it on purpose? Even a ghost would not believe such nonsense. Qing Jing sneered. What other intentions could she have? She was dissatisfied with the previous loss and wanted to find a way to get back at us. Under normal circumstances, Jiang Pingji would have half of Sangzhou and Qinzhou. But because of Meng Zhan's scheme, the entire Qinzhou and Sangzhou counties were in Huang Song's pocket. The whole process was effortless. It would be strange if Jiang Pingji could bear it. The strategist also thought of this. His face became gloomy and his tone was a bit cold. Even so, all this was planned by Meng Zhan. My lord just went with the flow. She did not care about her friendship with my lord and attacked you from behind. It was despicable. Qing Jing's lips curled into a mocking smile. Morality and benevolence couldn't restrain the calculation of interests. If they really wanted to be calculative, Huang Song was the one who broke the contract first. Meng Zhan set up this trap, and Huang Song did push the boat with the current, but it also hurt the interests of his allies. Jiang Pingji had been bullied. Naturally, she had to find a way to regain her dignity. Lu Prefecture Magistrate, are you ignoring the overall situation? Someone said softly. The Nie clan's diplomatic mission is still here. Nie Sun said softly, this time, it's not that Lu Prefecture's magistrate doesn't care about the big picture, it's Lord who doesn't care about the big picture. Jiang Pingji considered the big picture, so she didn't fall out with Huang Song immediately. She didn't even question him. Now that the ball had been kicked to Huang Song, he was about to face a difficult problem. Was he going to put up with this for the sake of the big picture? Or should he go to interrogate them and take back Qinzhou? The world was in chaos, and the territory belonged to whoever conquered it. If Huang Song went to ask for it, he would most likely return empty-handed and become a laughingstock. This was secondary. If the two sides could not come to an agreement on this issue, the already fragile alliance would collapse in an instant. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fishermen benefited. If Huang Song and Jiang Pingji fought, it would only benefit the Nie clan in the end. For the sake of the big picture, Huang Song had to accept this loss. He sent someone to negotiate with Jiang Pingji and come up with a plan that satisfied both sides. No matter what the most important plan was, Huang Song couldn't avoid losing a lot of money. Everyone in the tent thought of this, and their expressions became much gloomier. For a moment, the surroundings were silent. Only the crackling sound of the burning candles could be heard. After a while, Huang Song sat back in his seat in a daze. He said in a dejected tone, "Leave this matter to Huijie and Yumo." Qinzhou, which they had just obtained, was about to change hands. It would be a lie to say that they didn't feel heartache. Everyone looked at each other. They all wanted to stop it, but they couldn't think of a way to break the situation. Cheng Jing and Feng Ju could only accept the order. Nie Sun said, according to the letter, after Yang Si brought his troops into Qinzhou, he didn't start a massacre. He only imprisoned Commandant Yuanan. In my opinion, Lu Prefecture's magistrate doesn't want to break the alliance with the Lord at this time. Most likely, there's still room for negotiation. Jiang Pingji indeed didn't kill all of Huang Song's soldiers. Except for those who were injured during the battle, the other captives were imprisoned and guarded. Huang Song frowned and asked Nie Sun, "What do you think, Qingyun?" Nie Sun deliberated and said, "In my opinion, Lu Prefecture Magistrate may not want Qinzhou." Not Qinzhou? Why did he bring his troops to attack Qinzhou instead of Qinzhou? Why do you say that? Huang Song asked. Nie Sun cupped his hands and said hesitantly, "Qinzhou is located in the south, but Lu Prefecture Magistrate's territory is in the north." Huang Song frowned and got up to take a great universal geographical map. He looked at it carefully. Jiang Pingji's territory was all concentrated in the north: Beijiang, Chongzhou, Wanzhou, Hu County, and Qianyan County in Sangzhou. If Qinzhou was taken, Qinzhou had little to do with Jiang Pingji's territory. It was also separated by Huang Song's Zhangzhou and Sangzhou. Seeing this, Huang Song suddenly understood something. Nie Sun said, "I'm afraid Lu Prefecture Magistrate wants to exchange Qinzhou for Zhangzhou and Sangzhou." Nie Sun was not the only one who understood this. Cheng Jing and Feng Ju also knew this. Because Jiang Pingji had a request, there was room for bargaining in the negotiations. No, Sangzhou and Sangzhou, Huang Song refused without thinking. The pained expression on his face deepened. The two fattest pieces of meat in Sangzhou were the two counties in Huang Song's hands. The horse resources were concentrated there. If Sangzhou and Sangzhou were exchanged for Qinzhou, it meant that Jiang Pingji had the entire Sangzhou in her hands. Beijiang and Sangzhou were war resources that the military would fight for. The horse farms were in these two places. Without war horses, their combat power would be lower. How could they fight for the world and fight for supremacy? Huang Song was distressed. How could the other strategists not be distressed? Sangzhou and Sangzhou had finally gotten their hands on it, but now they were forced to give it up. Who wouldn't be upset? The strategists looked at each other. They voted with their eyes and chose Feng Ju as the representative to appease Huang Song. Feng Ju stepped forward and said, "My lord, it's better to make a decision as soon as possible." Huang Song was distraught. "My lord, you must know that what you lose, you gain. It's not impossible to exchange Sangzhou and Sangzhou for Qinzhou." Huang Song calmed down. He had always been willing to listen to Feng Ju. "Huijie, what do you mean?" "It's a pity to lose Sangzhou and Sangzhou, but it may not be a blessing for Lu Prefecture Magistrate to take Sangzhou. Beiyuan is eyeing Yumen Pass covetously. Zhanjiang Pass is guarding against the ambitious Nie family of Zhongzhou. My lord is in Haozhou and Qinzhou. Su Bei is in Hu County and Hu County." Huang Song looked down at the great universal geographical map. His expression suddenly changed. According to Feng Ju, Jiang Pingji was surrounded by enemies. Chapter 1094. The people in Jiang Pingji's tent also thought about what Feng Ju was worried about. Choose the lesser of two evils, and choose the greater of two benefits. Prefecture Magistrate Huang isn't an ordinary person. If we give up Sangzhou, he only needs to cultivate in peace for a few years and he'll be able to soar into the sky with a single leap. He'll develop into a thorn in the side of my lord. Feng Zhen smiled and squinted his eyes. His eyes shone brightly, as if he was calculating something. In comparison, Qinzhou is a rich and populous place, But because of the imperial family, its vitality has been greatly damaged. It won't be able to do much in the short term. In this chaotic world, developing well didn't mean that one would be able to walk to the end. If his fists weren't strong enough, even if he managed his territory well, he would only end up benefiting his opponents. After some deliberation, they insisted that Sangzhou was more valuable than Qinzhou. It would be best if they could get the 2 counties from Huangsong. Li Yun looked at the great universal geographical map and felt worried. If that's the case, won't we be surrounded by enemies on all sides? The Yi family of Beiyuan, the Nye family of Zhongzhou, and Huangsong and Su Bei of Dongqing. The first 2 were powerful, while the last 2 had a natural geographical advantage. If the 4 sides joined forces and attacked from all sides, the battle line would be stretched too far, and the Lord would fall into a very passive and dangerous situation. Feng Zhen frowned slightly and said helplessly, Han Mei, I had no choice but to make this choice. If the Lord takes Qinzhou, it will be too difficult to defend. If we don't do anything, Prefecture Magistrate Huang will be able to occupy Haozhou, Qinzhou, and Sangzhou counties. When that happens, our Lord will be in danger. Since all 3 paths were so steep, why not choose the most advantageous one? So what if he was besieged on all sides? They would always be able to find a way out of this predicament. If they didn't even have this little bit of confidence, how could they compete for supremacy? Li Yun thought about it carefully, his handsome face showing signs of worry. He wished he could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, cleansing the world for his lord. Meng Heng thought about it carefully. He seemed to have thought of something, and his furrowed brows gradually relaxed. Jiang Pengji noticed his expression and asked, Shurjiu, do you have any good ideas? Meng Heng stepped forward. Heng thought of the school of vertical and horizontal. School of vertical and horizontal? Meng Heng nodded and said, the school of vertical and horizontal is one of the 100 schools of thought. The first prime minister of the great Xia dynasty, Huang Fuxiu, absorbed the strengths of hundreds of schools of thought. He used the techniques of the school of vertical and horizontal to make friends with distant countries and attack their neighbors. Finally, he assisted Emperor Taizu of the Xia dynasty in unifying the 9 states. My lord exchanged Sangzhou and Sangzhou counties from Governor Huang. It seems like she will face the predicament of being surrounded by enemies on all sides, but if she uses a series of moves, she will definitely have a chance of survival. When de Xia was first established, there were hundreds of schools of thought that challenged and contended with each other. Different schools of thought competed with each other, and the atmosphere of academic research was strong. This wave did not last for long. When Prime Minister Huang Fuxiu was executed, the imperial court ordered that Confucianism should be the only one to be respected and other academic schools should be suppressed. Even now, the 100 schools of thought had recovered, but the Confucian school was still the leader of the 100 schools of thought, occupying the majority of the market. The other schools of thought kept a low profile. Jiang Pengji was about to listen carefully when she caught a glimpse of the bullet screen in the streaming room. Yuji Shangmia, the school of vertical and horizontal. But this world doesn't seem to have the 7 heroes of the Warring States period. Where did the vertical and horizontal come from? Just not bad. This world has the analects of Confucius and Mencius. Why can't there be alliances? It was normal for them to have similar thoughts. Zilongbao, befriend the distant and attack the nearby. Streamer, there's no Premier Zhou in this world, right? It's so funny to see her embarrassed. Lao Ciji Lianmeng, the phrase, befriend the distant and attack the nearby, comes from the strategy of the Warring States. It's better for a king to befriend the distant and attack the nearby. If you have an inch, you'll be a king. If you have a ruler, you'll be a king. The core meaning is to contact distant countries and attack the nearby countries. I don't think it's embarrassing. Landie, during the Warring States period, Qin could fight against 6 people alone. The streamer only has 4. What's there to be afraid of? Jiang Pengji's mood lightened up when she saw the bullet screen. It was just 1 against 4. She was not afraid. She signaled Meng Heng with her eyes to continue. The latter hesitated for a moment and said, the Yi family of Beiyuan is powerful, but they are not without worries. My lord, Why don't you secretly express your goodwill to the royal family of Baiyuan or other aristocratic families? You can use this to restrain the Yi family so that they have no time to care about other things. Baiyuan was a strange country. The royal family was weak and the power of the country was in the hands of a few aristocratic families. The Yi family also had enemies. It was not impossible to send an envoy to instigate and lobby them. This method could also be used on the other clans. Because of this, everyone had a secret meeting for a long time. The frown on their faces finally eased up. Although it was a dangerous move, if it was executed well, they could be reborn in the end. Wei Ci looked at Jiang Pingji's side profile. His eyes were like rippling spring water, shining with an intoxicating gentleness. He was very glad that God had given him a second chance. He could make up for the regrets of his previous life and watch this person ascend to the throne with his own eyes. As he was thinking, his fingertips touched something hot and wet. He looked down and saw that it was the black and white ball of meat using its nose to support his hand. It looked at him with its innocent black eyes. The black and white ball of meat used its mouth to suck his finger, trying to suck something out. It did not move for a while. It was sad like a salted fish that had lost its dream. Wei Ci laughed to himself. In order not to disturb the others, he secretly covered it with his sleeves and carried it on his knees. He took out the dried meat that had been softened in advance from his sleeves. Fortunately, the meeting ended quickly. Wei Ci carried the ball of meat out as if nothing had happened. He looked around and found the soldier who was taking care of the ball of meat. The soldier did not dare to go near the main tent. He could only anxiously stay where he was and wipe his sweat. He had only taken a short nap. He did not expect that the beloved pet that the military counselor had asked him to take care of would disappear without a trace. Wei Ci comforted him with a smile. Take good care of it. Don't let it run around in the camp. Otherwise, it will be easily stolen by others for a sumptuous meal. The soldier nodded repeatedly. Just as he was about to carry the ball of meat away, he awkwardly realized that the ball of meat had used all 4 of its paws and was holding onto Wei Ci's sleeves tightly. It kept making sounds of grievance, as if it was complaining about a scumbag who had abandoned his wife and daughter. Wei Ci raised his hand and patted its head. He said gently, "Don't be angry." The soldier secretly peeked at Wei Ci. Seeing his gentle expression, he could not help but be secretly speechless. The teacher was indeed an immortal who had descended to the world. No matter what he did, he looked so good. Those who know the inside story know that you are raising a pet. Those who don't know would think that you are raising a child. Fengzhen followed him and found that Wei Ci's loving father attitude was pure and natural. He was even more skilled than an experienced driver. If Zixiao had a child, wouldn't he be pampered to the heavens by you? Fengzhen joked with a smile. Wei Ci's expression dimmed a little. He said coldly, "Excessive pampering is the same as overpraising him to death. Zixiao is quite understanding. He really does not look like someone who does not have a family." Wei Ci's eyes narrowed as if asking, "Is this the reason for you to trick Feng Yi?" Fengzhen stiffly changed the topic. "Cough, let's not talk about this. Does Zixiao also agree with my lord's use of the art of interconnection?" "I agree, but the candidates have not been decided." Wei Ci said, "Huang Song and Su Bei are easy to deal with. We know their backgrounds. However, the Yi family of Baiyuan and the Nye family of Zhongzhao are not so easy to deal with." Chapter 1095. It'd be great if there was a second or third Sun Zidao. He'd definitely be good at this. Wei Ci glanced at Fengzhen and said, "It's better to rely on yourself than on others." Fengzhen shook his head like a rattle drum. How could he do this kind of work with his small body? Zixiao is really vicious. Baiyuan has always been known as the northern country of ice and snow. Out of the 4 seasons, it's only warm for a few months. The rest of the time, it's snowing and freezing the city. If you really went there, you'd probably be frozen before you could even convince anyone. Fengzhen's eyes flashed and he teased, "In my opinion, Zixiao is a great candidate with a silver tongue. I heard that the people of Beiyuan, regardless of gender, are all tall and strong. Zixiao, with your beauty, I wonder how popular you'd be. The first few sentences were decent, but the last few sentences went off the rails. Wei Ci strode forward, too lazy to waste his breath on Feng Zhen. Cough cough cough. Zixiao, don't walk so fast. Feng Zhen saw Wei Ci's frosty expression and sighed. Honest people really couldn't take teasing. After jogging for 2 steps, Wei Ci stopped in front of him. Zixiao still cares for people. I know. Feng Zhen didn't finish his sentence when the smile on his face disappeared. His gaze fell on a man not far away. He looked similar to Wei Ci and had a more honest and gentle temperament. Wasn't this Wei Dan from the Nye family envoy, Wei Ci's eldest brother? What was he doing here? Eldest brother. Wei Ci stepped forward to greet him. Before he could get up, Wei Dan's cold right hand grabbed his wrist. Soon, a few red finger marks were left on his skin. It was clear how much force he had used in his anxiety. Eldest brother, what happened? Why did the usually calm eldest brother lose his composure like this? Feng Zhen was also observing Wei Dan. Only then did he realize that his eyes were slightly green and his expression was tired and dispirited. Zixiao, do me a favor. Wei Dan's tone was nervous. Wei Ci lowered his face to hide the emotions in his eyes. He said, don't rush, eldest brother. Let's talk as we walk. Wei Dan didn't invite Feng Zhen, but he didn't refuse either. The latter shamelessly followed the two. Wei Dan's steps were swift and his strides were wide. His clothes brushed against each other and made a clear rustling sound. If it was in the past, Wei Yong wouldn't have been so rude, but he couldn't care less now. Zixiao, you've learned the art of Qi Huang. Can you diagnose a common cold and fever? Wei Chang knew that Wei Ci had medical skills. As the saying goes, a prolonged illness makes one a doctor. Wei Ci's medical skills had been trained this way. Wei Ci nodded. Although my medical skills are not as exquisite as those of famous doctors, it is not a problem for me to treat minor illnesses and fevers. Feng Zhen asked, if someone is sick, why don't they find a doctor? I don't trust you. When Wei Ling said these 3 words, his expression darkened several degrees, and a heavy and oppressive aura lingered around his body. Feng Zhen's eyes widened in shock. You can't trust the doctor you brought, but you trust your own brother from the opposing camp? How much trust did Big Brother have in Wei Ci's integrity? Wasn't he afraid that Wei Ci would tamper with the prescription and complete the ultimate killer move with just 1 set of medicine? Just as Feng Zhen was curious about the patient's identity, Wei Ci quickly guessed the patient's identity. In the entire world, apart from family members, only Nye Liang could make eldest brother so nervous and lose his composure. It was rare to find a confidant in life. In his previous life, Nye Liang had died early, and eldest brother had been depressed for more than 10 years before he finally passed away from illness. Following Wei Ling's footsteps, Wei Ci and Feng Zhen entered the Nye family's quarters. Before the two entered the courtyard, they smelled the scent of medicine in the air. Wei Ci secretly twitched his nose, his brows furrowing. Guangshan, Zixiao is here. Feng Zhen looked at the sneaky formation and furrowed his brows in displeasure. At the same time, he was secretly glad that he had followed. If he had not followed and Wei Ci had been brought here by Wei Ling alone, and someone with ulterior motives had spread the news to Jiangpingji, the Lord might have become suspicious. Entering the room, the scent of medicine in the air was even stronger, mixed with an indescribable sour smell. Just as Wei Ling finished speaking, the two of them heard a heart-wrenching cough. Wei Ci was startled. It had only been a few days since they had last seen each other. Why had Nye Liang become so ill? Nye Liang lay on the bed, his cheeks pale and his lips chapped. Faint bruises could be seen at the corners of his lips. I haven't seen you for a few days. Why have you become like this? Nye Liang struggled to sit up. He looked very weak, as if his vitality had been sucked away by something. He smiled bitterly and said, Why did Zixuan invite your younger brother here? The doctor has already taken a look at me. It's not a serious illness. With that, he said to Wei Ci and Feng Zhen, Forgive Liang for being too ill to entertain the two of you. Please help yourself. Wei Ling said, Zixiao's skills are not bad. No matter what, let him take a look. If he is really fine, Liang will be at ease. Nie Liang could not dissuade his best friend, so he could only smile apologetically at Wei Ci. Thank you, Zixiao, for making this trip. Wei Ci nodded and lifted the bedding. He let Nie Liang stretch out a hand and carefully feel his pulse. Nie Liang was seriously ill. His pulse was much weaker than an ordinary person's. It was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. This pulse. Wei Ci paused and turned to ask Wei Ling, what did the other doctors say? They only said it was a common cold. They prescribed a few prescriptions, but Guangshan's cold did not improve. Wei Ling frowned. He even revealed the matter of Nie Liang secretly pouring out the medicine. Nie Liang, who was lying on the bed, secretly turned his face away. He felt embarrassed. The day before yesterday, the doctor prescribed a new medicine for Guangshan. I watched him drink it, but not long after, Guangshan's condition worsened rapidly. I checked that prescription and the dregs of the decoction. They were all for a cold. The doctors took turns to diagnose and treat him, but their statements were too uniform. I became suspicious and was afraid of alerting the enemy. I had no choice but to get Zixiao to take his pulse and see what was going on. Wei Ci said, in that case, Mr. Nia also noticed it. What do you mean? He was poisoned. Although the poison is weak, taking something poisonous for a long time will definitely cause the poison to accumulate in his body, making him weak and frail. Wei Ci said, the prescription prescribed by the doctor for a cold is definitely useless. Drinking it will do more harm than good. Nie Liang did not have a cold at all. He was poisoned by someone. Nie Liang's eyes flashed with astonishment. Wei Ling even tightened his grip on his sleeves. Poisoned? I still have to look at the prescriptions prescribed by the other doctors. I'm not sure what went wrong. After Wei Ci finished, he added, Big brother, you should pay attention to the doctors who came with you. Such a simple pulse, any qualified doctor can take it. They all said that Mr. Nie had a cold. This doesn't make sense. Wei Ling endured it. It took a lot of effort to suppress his anger. He got up and took the prescription prescribed by the doctor. I didn't expect that Zixuan would find you. Taking advantage of Wei Ling's departure, Nie Liang laughed softly. A smile appeared on his sickly face. Mr. is of noble character and unquestionable integrity. Liang admires you very much. If Wei Ci wanted him to die, he only needed to hide his illness and pulse. Wei Ling could not say anything. Chapter 1096. Nie Liang seemed to want to laugh, but because his movements were too big, he accidentally choked. The smile that had just risen froze at the corner of his lips. You're really straightforward. Nie Liang took a breath and looked at Wei Ci with a faint smile. I thought that Zixiao and your brother's temperament is similar, but now that I see it, I've misjudged you. Aren't you afraid of hurting yourself by saying this to me? Wei Ci opened his thin lips. Mr. Nie, please open your mouth. Your tongue is thick and has a different color. Are there any differences when you eat or drink tea? Nie Liang looked straight at Wei Ci's face. Whatever the other person instructed, he would do as he was told, acting like a well-behaved patient who was highly cooperative with the doctor. Differences? Occasionally you can't taste it or the tip of your tongue is slow. Something that is obviously bitter, but it doesn't taste as bitter as I remember. The process of looking, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse, every move was smooth and pleasing to the eye. If he did not know Wei Ci's identity, Nie Liang would have suspected that Wei Ci was a reclusive and virtuous doctor. You discovered it in time. If you carefully dispel the poison, except for a weak body, your life will not be in danger. Remember not to overwork or waste too much energy. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll die young. Wei Ci said, I can see that Big Brother regards Mr. Nie as a confidant. According to Big Brother's temperament, if something happens to Mr. Nie under his watch, he'll probably be depressed for the rest of his life. Nie Liang wanted to laugh bitterly. Living in troubled times, every day alive was a day earned. How many years was there between dying young and dying of old age? Nie Liang's identity meant that he could not stay out of the struggle. He discovered it in time this time, but could he escape a second time? However, he never expected Wei Ci to mention Wei Dan. A trace of astonishment flashed in Nie Liang's eyes, as if he did not expect that the reason Wei Ci was willing to help was for Wei Dan. There are many heroes in the world, and it can be said that there are many bright stars, but there is only one Nie Liang in the world. Wei Ci smiled lightly, his overly delicate and colorful face instantly became lively, like 100 flowers blooming. Of course, Mr. Nie only has one life. Nie Liang was about to speak, but his sharp ears heard Wei Dan's footsteps and he quickly stopped. Zixiao, the prescriptions are all here. Wei Dan took out several prescriptions. Some were in the form of bamboo slips, while others were folded bamboo paper. They were all well preserved. Wei Ci took it and looked at it closely. His brows were sometimes furrowed and sometimes relaxed, making Wei Ci's heart beat wildly. There's no problem with these prescriptions. Whether it's the herbs or the measurements, they're all good for treating colds. After Wei Ci looked at them, he arranged them neatly and returned them to their original positions. However, you must prescribe the right medicine to treat the illness. Although Mr. Nie has signs of a cold, these symptoms are caused by poison and not a cold. Drinking these medicines will not only not treat the symptoms but will also worsen the poison entering the body. After Wei Yong heard this, he was so angry that his whole body trembled. If not for the fact that the situation was not right, he would have drawn the sword at his waist and killed all of the accompanying physicians. Eldest brother, you said that all the doctors spoke the same words. I'm afraid there's something fishy behind this. Wei Ci did not say much, but his meaning was clear. It was not an accident that Nie Liang was poisoned and killed. The actions of the few physicians were also instigated by the mastermind. Rather than venting his anger on a few physicians and making the mastermind vigilant, it was better to beat them at their own game. Nie Liang lowered his head slightly, a few rays of light flashed past his eyes. He smiled weakly and said softly, "Family scandals should not be spread in public. I've embarrassed myself in front of Zixiao." Wei Ci wrote a new prescription for Nie Liang. Mr. Nie's body has accumulated a lot of poison, but getting rid of it is not a day's work. Mr.'s body is not suitable for heavy medicine now, so we can only take it slowly. My medical skills are limited. Mr. Nie, you can find a trusted medical officer later. His slender fingers pinched the pen and dropped the pen. His handwriting was clean and beautiful, pleasing to the eye. Nie Liang said, "No need. Zixiao's medical skills are good and trustworthy." Wei Ci did not reply and handed the prescription to Wei Yong. Does Mr. Nie have any other instructions? Nie Liang knew that Wei Ci was planning to leave. There is indeed one thing. Nie Liang's eyes wandered and said awkwardly, "There's licorice in the prescription. Can the amount be heavier?" Afraid of bitterness? Wei Ci asked with his eyes. Nie Liang hesitated for a second between bitterness and disgrace, before decisively choosing the latter. Feng Zhen, who had been in the background, was speechless. He seemed to have found out a secret. Nie Liang was seriously ill and could not get up to send him off. He could only let Wei Yong take his place to be polite. After a distance, Feng Zhen's gossipy nature could not help itself. Why did Zixiao save him? Although he did not understand Nie Liang's position in the Nie family, he felt that this person was not easy to deal with. Leaving him alive would be a disaster. The master of the Nie family is Nie Liang's grandfather. This old man was an influential figure when he was young. Now that he is old, he is still full of energy and does not lose to the younger generation. He controls the Nie family's authority. Wei Ci said coldly, although he is not muddle-headed, he has not chosen a suitable successor. As time drags on, his children will gradually grow up and the people's hearts will waver. They will start to think about things they should not. Feng Zhen immediately thought of the Su family from Ji County. The two brothers, Su Bei and Su Fei, fought so fiercely. Wasn't it because the grandfather favored the youngest grandson and caused a fight between the eldest grandson and the second grandson? The Nie family situation was more complicated than the Su family. The two sons of the old master of the Su family were both dead, leaving only two grandsons. The Nye family was different. Each branch feels that they have hope. How can they live in peace? Wei Si's eyes flashed with a trace of memory. In his previous life, when he lived in seclusion in Zhongzhao's Bianzhou, he had also been solicited by the second branch of the Nye family. They tried to pit him against the fifth branch that his elder brother worked for. Nye Liang is the most outstanding of the grandchildren. He also holds the title of the eldest son of the fifth branch. If he gains the favor of the old master, the status of the fifth branch will rise along with him. Thus, some people could not resist. After hearing this, Feng Zhen finally understood the whole story. In that case, if Nye Liang is alive, he can muddy the waters of the Nye family even more? Wei Si nodded. Exactly. Feng Zhen smacked his lips. Just watch. That Nye Liang is not simple. If he is allowed to live and clean up the internal affairs of the Nye family, he will be a formidable opponent. Ci said that Nye Liang's body is not suitable to expend too much effort and energy. Wei Si lowered his eyes and said, moreover, the internal affairs of the Nye family are intertwined. To clean them up is not something that can be done in a day or two. Although Nye Liang is the most outstanding of the grandchildren, the fifth branch of the Nye family does not have much power. If not for this, the mission of diplomatic envoy to another country would not have landed on Nye Liang. If he wants to clean up the Nye family, there is still a long way to go. Feng Zhen's mouth twitched. He asked blankly, if he does not follow the doctor's advice, Wei Si said, his lifespan will be shortened. Internal strife was common in every aristocratic family. Even the righteous Shangyang Feng family could not avoid it. Chapter 1097. Isn't my lord worried about having no one to restrain the Nye family? Wei Si smiled. Nye Liang is the best pawn. He was a pawn that came to him on his own accord. In this regard, Feng Zhen could only cheer for Wei Si and cheer him brainlessly. You can even think of such a way to make the Nye family fall into internal strife. How can you be so cunning? Feng Zhen said disdainfully, but his eyes showed otherwise. However, I'm curious about one thing. How do you know so much about the Nye family? Since ancient times, one should not wash one's dirty linen in public. Only the Nye family knows about the internal strife. How could it be spread everywhere? Wei Si was busy with government affairs and battles everywhere with the army. How could he have the time to gather information? Trade between Zhongzhao and Dongqing was basically closed. There were almost no other channels for information. How did Wei Si know so much? Wei Si put his hands behind his back. His clothes fluttered in the wind. He looked at the sky and sighed. Feng Zhen stretched out his ears to hear the answer. Wei Si said, the secrets of heaven cannot be revealed. Feng Zhen was speechless. You'll lose the baby. Wei Si couldn't stand Feng Zhen's resentful gaze. He said helplessly, I calculated it by watching the stars day and night. Why don't you say it was Guo Yu who told you? Wei Si was able to see this from observing the stars. Did Wei Si really think that Feng Zhen did not understand the art of astrology? Wei Si answered readily, not only can I control ghosts, but I also understand the language of beasts. I know what plants are saying. Feng Zhen's eyes widened in shock. He sneered. Wei Zixiao, you really panted when I said, you're fat. The two bickered for a while and unknowingly returned to their home base. Wei Si told Jiang Pingji the good news. Nye Liang's return to the Nye family would probably cause a storm. He couldn't manage Zhangzhou for the time being. This news is timely, Jiang Pingji said. But can Nye Liang defeat the other old foxes of the Nye family? Jiang Pingji began to worry that Nye Liang wasn't strong enough. Wouldn't it be a pity if he died too quickly? Wei Si said confidently, Nye Liang is known as the ghost of the Nye family. If he hadn't schemed in secret, the Nye family wouldn't be so strong. Now that the Nye family wants to get rid of him, he's probably very disappointed. My lord, Nye Liang may look harmless, but he is definitely not an indecisive person. If these cancerous tumors continued to plague the Nye clan, the clan's foundation would definitely be ruined. Given his temperament, there's no way he would watch the Nye clan decline without doing anything. According to Zixiao, this person isn't a fool. Jiang Pingji crossed her arms in front of her chest and said with a frown, he should know that he's dealing with the internal strife, so he won't have time to attend to Zhangzhou. He'll miss a good opportunity. Letting a tiger return to the mountain will cause endless troubles in the future. How could he not know? Wei Ci smiled and said, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So what if Nye Guangshan knows? Where there is gain, there must be loss. If he cared about one side, he would neglect the other. Nye Liang knew how to choose. In his past life, Wei Ci had very little contact with this genius from the Nye family. From what he understood, the family held a very heavy weight in Nye Liang's heart. With the current situation, was it more important to expand outward and allow the family to have internal strife, or was it more important to purge the family? Nye Liang had a balance in his heart and would not lose the bigger picture because of a small thing. Jiang Pingji said, Zixiao, make the decision. I trust you. However, before the Nye family leaves, we must first settle the matter in Zhangzhou. The Nye family pressured Huang Song so that Jiang Pingji could use this as leverage to exchange for the 2 counties in Zhangzhou. If the Nye family's diplomatic group left, Huang Song might act shamelessly. Wei Ci said, yes. The next day, Feng Zhu and Qing Jing came to visit on behalf of Huang Song. The 2 of them were quite tactful. They did not ask Jiang Pingji stupid questions such as why she sent troops to Qinzhou. Huang Song had done wrong in Qinzhou. Jiang Pingji had retaliated, so they could not reprimand her. Otherwise, they would have scolded Huang Song as well. The 2 of them were straightforward and decisive. They tested Jiang Pingji's tone a little. With a plan in mind, Feng Zhu revealed his suggestion to exchange the 2 counties in Zhangzhou for Qinzhou. Jiang Pingji smiled and leaned on the table. Is this Bogeo's idea? Feng Zhu said calmly, of course it's my lord's idea. Although I'm trusted by my lord, I dare not act on my own. The 2 counties in Zhangzhou are a fat piece of meat that the strategists must fight for. Bogeo is actually willing to exchange them for Qinzhou. Isn't this a great loss? Feng Zhu said, my lord and the magistrate of Liuzhou are as close as brother and sister. When has a family ever said such things? My lord doesn't care about these gains and losses. What's important is the stability of the alliance between the 2 families. My lord didn't handle the matter with Meng Zhan well. He worried day and night that it would cause a rift between the magistrate of Liuzhou. After thinking about it, this is the only way to make up for it. I hope that you don't mind. I can report to my lord and let him feel at ease. Feng Zhu could not see that a group of fans were cheering him on across dimensions. The comments were even more varied. Zhongfei yesterday's stars, I've finally seen it. This streaming room is full of drama queens and big shots who lie with their eyes open. Yu Yenran. If I hadn't been following the updates and knew the whole story, I would have thought that Huang Song had really suffered a loss. He and the streamer only had a fake, plastic sibling relationship. Why did Feng Zhu say that they were model siblings? This was the highest realm of lying with their eyes open. Emodansi, it's not enough to lie with your eyes open. The key is to be thick-skinned. I like people who are so shameless. Jing. Although Brother Feng doesn't appear many times, I really like him. I'm cheering for him. Jiang Pingji ignored the contents of the bullet screen. She smiled and said, Bogeo and I are not strangers. I don't agree with what Huaijie said. Feng Zhu said, so, you agree to it? Jiang Pingji revealed a doting smile. Since Bogeo likes Qinzhou, Qinzhou will be given to him. Feng Zhu looked hesitant and only spoke after a while. Zhu, there's one more thing. I don't know how you plan to deal with it. Huaijie, just say what you want to say. Feng Zhu asked, Meng Zhan brutally killed the royal family and overturned the universe. My lord sent troops to rescue him and station them in Qinzhou. However, the valiant generals under the command of Lu mistook them for rebels and detained them as captives. If I may ask, have you thought about how to deal with them? He was asking her for captives. Jiang Pingji smiled and squinted her eyes. She was very generous. Since it's a misunderstanding, How can I detain Bogeo's men and not let them go? When Jing Rong comes over, I'll ask him to supervise this matter. He thought that Jiang Pingji would deliberately make things difficult or detain the captives, but it went unexpectedly smoothly. Feng Zhu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. After leaving the main tent, Qing Jing said to Feng Zhu, I have a bad feeling about this. Feng Zhu frowned. Magistrate Lu's expression is too relaxed. He doesn't seem to be afraid of being surrounded by enemies on all sides. Putting oneself on the edge of death to survive? It was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to do it. The two of them left together and happened to see a familiar figure leaving in a hurry. His expression was a little strange. Cheng Jing glanced at Nie Sun's departing figure. Why is he here? Chapter 1098. Cheng Jing's eyebrows twitched as he asked hesitantly, as close as brothers? The two of them have a good relationship. Feng Zhu fell silent. News of what had happened in the dungeon that day had not spread, so not many people knew the truth. Cheng Jing was not one of them. He said lightly, blood brothers. The nerves in the corner of Cheng Jing's eyes seemed to be going out of control. It was as if he wanted to say something. Blood brothers? Those three short words made Cheng Jing think of Nie Sun's and Meng Heng's backgrounds. In his mind, he imagined a tragic scene in the backyard of a landowning household. Let's go. The Lord is still waiting for us to report back. Feng Zhu took a deep breath and suppressed the waves in his heart. At this sensitive moment, Nie Sun and Meng Heng were very close. Even though they were brothers, it was still suspicious. If the Lord were to find out, who knew what she would imagine? Now that the situation is turbulent, suspicion and infighting are taboo. Honestly, people of this character are trustworthy. It's better to keep this a secret. Cheng Jing understood what Feng Zhu meant. Suspicion and jealousy would not only cause the ruler to distance himself from his subordinates, it would also cause the subordinates to feel disappointed and distance themselves from the ruler. However, the two of them forgot. They had the intention to help cover it up, but they couldn't stop people from watching Nie Sun and snitching on him. When the two of them went back to report, they found that Huang Song's expression was not very good. His gloomy expression seemed to be brewing a storm. When he saw Cheng Jing and Feng Zhu coming together, he immediately put away his angry expression and asked, Is it done? Feng Zhu cupped his hands and reported, I didn't fail you. It has been done. Huang Song's expression relaxed a little, and his tone became a little warmer. It's good that it's done. Thank you for your hard work. Feng Zhu noticed Huang Song's strange expression and asked tentatively, My lord, you don't look worried just now. Did you encounter a difficult problem? Huaijie, what kind of person do you think Qing Yun is? Huang Song trusted Feng Zhu far more than anyone else. If this question had been asked by someone else, he would most likely have evaded the question and sent the person away. However, Feng Zhu was different. This person really has no ulterior motives? Feng Zhu was horrified. I've always been loyal and sincere to my lord. How could I be disloyal? Why would my lord say such chilling words? Huang Song's face turned pale, and he looked a little ashamed. He should not have doubted Nie Sun's loyalty because of Yuan Xianxia's repeated instigation and snitching. He sighed. Then I'm overthinking things. Feng Zhu asked with a serious expression, Could it be that someone has slandered the Lord again? Huang Song did not hide it. After all, Yuan Xian and Nie Sun did not get along, and it was no secret that Yuan Xian often snitched on Nie Sun. Feng Zhu was silent for a while. A trace of irritation arose in his heart, but he restrained his expression and advised seriously, My lord, the matter has not been concluded yet, so you can't make wild guesses. If you have any misgivings, you can call Qing Yun over and ask him about it openly and honestly. If he did things openly, there was naturally nothing to hide. If he really has ulterior motives, his expression and actions will also reveal flaws. Instead of filling in the air with suspicions and causing the two of them to gradually drift apart, it was better to ask the person in question. The awkwardness on Huang Song's face deepened. Feng Zhu's trust in Nie Sun made him feel ashamed. This is my fault. I will definitely apologize to Qing Yun. When Feng Zhu heard this, his heart relaxed. Little did he know that Huang Song's apology was not to go to Nie Sun's door to confide in him and completely eliminate his suspicions. It was not that Huang Song felt ashamed to apologize to an official, but because going to his door to apologize was a little like revealing the truth. Wasn't this clearly telling Nie Sun that he was suspicious of him because of someone else's snitch? Since he could not go to his door to apologize, Huang Song thought about it and sent the rewards to Nie Sun like water. After receiving the generous rewards, Nie Sun was confused. He had not performed any meritorious deeds recently, so why did the Lord suddenly give him such a big reward? The young and humble could not refuse a reward from the Lord. Naturally, the Lord had to keep the rewards well, but he did not know that it made Yuan Exin even more annoyed and angry. Nie Sun had a close relationship with Meng Heng and was suspected of having ulterior motives. Not only did he not receive a heavy punishment, but he also received a generous reward. What was this? Although everyone did not put their conflict out in the open, they were well aware of it. When the Nie family's diplomatic mission suddenly proposed to leave, this buried bomb completely detonated and stunned a circle of people. Because of the Nie family's pressure, Huang Song only agreed to exchange Songzhou and Qinzhou after much consideration. So when Nie Liang led the Nie family's diplomatic mission to say goodbye, Huang Song was grinning on the surface but cursing in his heart. Did Nie Liang come all the way from Zhongzhou just to play a trick on him? The Nie family's diplomatic group had just left without any warning, let alone further pressure or threaten them. Huang Song's decision to give up the 2 counties of Zhongzhou seemed foolish. It was no wonder that when Feng Zhu and Qing Jing went over, Jiang Pingji agreed without any hesitation. Suddenly, Huang Song thought of a detail, although it was Feng Zhu's persuasion that made him make up his mind about exchanging Zhongzhou and Qinzhou. The original person who suggested it was Nie Sun. However, thinking about the situation at that time, Nie Sun's suggestion was a good way out. Who knew that the Nie family would change their mind so quickly and catch everyone off guard? Huang Song could only suppress this strange emotion and spend a lot of time discussing the next arrangements with his confidants. If that was the case, Huang Song would be able to let go of this matter in a few days. However, Yuan Exin refused to give up. In his opinion, Nie Sun was arrogant and ungrateful. His lord had let him off time and time again, but instead of being loyal and repaying her kindness, he repaid her kindness with enmity. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will definitely let my lord see this person's true colors. Yuan Exin visited Huang Song in the middle of the night with a solemn and stirring mood, as if he was going to the guillotine. Huang Song could only crawl out of bed. He wore a thin shirt over his sleeping clothes, and his expression was full of sleepiness. Captain Yuan, what urgent matter can't be left until tomorrow? Why must you visit me in the middle of the night? Seeing Yuan Exin now, Huang Song could not help but feel a headache coming on. Yuan Exin said with tears streaming down his face, "My lord, this is irrefutable evidence that Nie Sun and Lu Shi are working together." When Huang Song heard this, he could no longer hold back his suppressed anger, but only coldness remained on his face. "Oh, what do you mean?" Yuan Exin said, "Some time ago, I often saw that Nie Sun and Meng Heng from Lu Shi's side were in close contact. The 2 of them always avoided others when they talked, as if they were talking about something unspeakable. After that, Nie Sun suggested to my lord that we exchanged Songzhou and Qinzhou. I thought that Lu Shi must have gotten some news that the Nie family's envoy was about to leave and couldn't care about Songzhou, so he instructed Nie Sun to mislead my lord. If that wasn't the case, why would Lu Shi take the loss and agree to the exchange without making things difficult for us? At that time, exchanging Qinzhou and Songzhou for Songzhou and Qinzhou was very disadvantageous and risky. The more Yuan Exin thought about it, the more he felt that Nie Sun's suggestion was not well-intentioned. Huang Song's expression changed again and again. After a while, he said, "I have my own conclusions about this matter. Captain Yuan, don't interfere." When Yuan Exin heard this, he felt indignant. Chapter 1099. As the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. Even though Yang Xi's speed wasn't slow, when he arrived at Sangzhou, the Nie clan's diplomatic mission had just left. "My lord, I'm late." Yang Xi took the initiative to apologize. His voice was a little nasal. He hadn't had the time to take care of his appearance, so he looked particularly disheveled. Dian Yen also hurriedly apologized. "This lowly one was late, please forgive me, lord." Jiang Pingji helped them up. "Not too late, not too late. You came just in time." "Jing Rong, your voice doesn't sound right. Are you sick?" Yang Xi said, "I caught a cold. I'll be fine after taking a few doses of medicine." Dian Yen pulled the rug out from under his feet. "The military counselor has been busy for days. He almost doesn't have time to drink medicine to recuperate. This cold has been going on for almost a month." Jiang Pingji furrowed her brows. "Get the military doctor to treat Jing Rong carefully. Even if it's just a minor illness, we can't take it lightly." Yang Xi was unable to reject her good intentions. Instead, he felt warmth in his heart. Nie Liang was poisoned by someone, which was why he had an incurable cold for so long. Yang Xi was delayed for a month purely because he did not have a good rest. Wei Ci secretly took a look at the prescription given by the military doctor. It was indeed the right medicine. Only then did he feel at ease and allowed someone to prescribe the medicine for the patient. "Zixiao, do you know why the Nie clan's diplomatic mission suddenly left? How could the Nie family be willing to relent when they hadn't gotten any benefits?" Wei Ci communicated with Yang Xi and roughly explained the recent situation so that the other party would have a sense of what was going on. Yang Xi was speechless after hearing that. "If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have had to travel day and night and lose weight. If he couldn't recuperate, he would lose his appetite." Yang Xi had lost a lot of weight recently. Wei Ci glanced at him suspiciously. "How did I lose weight?" As they were talking, Jiang Pingji called them into the tent. "Has Jing Rong settled all of Bogeo's troops in Qinzhou?" Jiang Pingji still wanted to take Sangzhou. At present, Qinzhou was not of great strategic importance to her. Yang Xi perked up and stepped out of the ranks. "As per my lord's orders, the captives have been properly settled. As the saying goes, don't bother two masters for one thing. Why don't you let Jing Rong handle the exchange between Sangzhou and Qinzhou? Do you have any objections?" Yang Xi, who was still a patient, secretly grinned. He didn't dare to have any objections. "Rainbow sweetheart, oh, long time no see, little Cici. Green Arrow Peppermint, I'm rooting for Rong Rong like crazy." He could only blame the heartless host for not letting him appear for a few years. Back then, when Yang Xi first appeared on the scene, he had garnered countless fans and a huge fan club. Ever since Jiang Pingji sent Yang Xi to Hu County, there had been no sign of him in the streaming room for the past few years. Many fans abandoned their old loves and sought refuge in the arms of their new loves. At present, most of the people who were still fans of Yang Xi were his die-hard fans. "Bai Qi, the streamer is really crazy. Little Rong Rong is still a patient. Can't you have some love? My husband Su Town. If the host is in love, then Yang Xi will be so scared, right? Love and producer, I'm begging the streamer not to send Xiao Rong Rong to such a remote place. It's better to keep her by your side." The audience loved it madly, but unfortunately, Yang Xi, the person involved, did not know. "Yes, I won't let you down." Yang Xi cupped his hands and bowed, accepting the task. "By the way, how are the Su brothers in Jia County doing?" After all, they were future opponents. Only by knowing oneself and one's enemy could one win 100 battles. Yang Xi said, "You don't have to be afraid of Su Fei, but this Su Bei. My lord, you have to pay attention to him." Jiang Pingji said, "Oh? Su Fei is a radical person. He's brave but reckless. Now that he's been beaten by his cousin, Su Bei, he's like a turtle hiding on the ground. It looks like he won't be able to hold on for long. If nothing unexpected happens, there should be no hope for him to make a comeback." Yang Xi said, "Su Bei is different. He's courteous and humble, and he's from a prestigious family. He's recruited many talents and outstanding talents. Among them, his trusted strategist, Han Yu, is the most outstanding. Han Yu is treacherous, shrewd, and meticulous. He's not easy to deal with. Hanyu? Wenbin? No matter what, he's Master Yuanjing's brilliant disciple. If he's an ordinary person, he'll be letting down Master Yuanjing's teachings. Upon hearing this long-lost name, Jiang Pingji's first impression was of the handsome youth from the Yi River in Hejian. Yang Si nodded. He could barely be considered Master Yuanjing's adopted son. According to their relationship, he and Han Yu could be considered fellow disciples. Yang Si briefly reported the happenings in Hu County over the past few years. Jiang Pingji listened attentively. Yang Si's abilities were outstanding. Over the past few years, he'd worked on two fronts simultaneously. Not only had he ruled Hu County into an iron fortress, but he'd also ensured that the people under his rule lived and worked in peace and contentment. He'd also put in a lot of effort to maintain his alliance with Su Bei, pitting his wits and courage against each other. Over the past few years, he hadn't made a single mistake. This wasn't something an ordinary person could achieve. Jing Rong, it's been hard on you all these years. I'm just doing my duty. I dare not claim credit, Yang Si said humbly. After Yang Si, it was Dian Yan's turn. Jiang Pingji didn't inquire about Dian Yan's military or political affairs. Instead, she gave him a test. The result was unexpected. Dian Yan, who didn't know much about literature, could answer her questions fluently. In the past few years, Deputy Commander Dian has put in a lot of effort to learn. Now that he's been reborn, it's really amazing. Most of the generals under Jiang Pingji's command had been promoted several times. Only Dian Yan hadn't moved since he was promoted to deputy commander. It wasn't that she was stingy or that Dian Yan hadn't performed enough meritorious deeds. It was just that Dian Yan's foundation was the weakest. She wanted to train him well before she put him in an important position. A general who was brave but not astute wouldn't last long. After the test, her impression of Dian Yan was refreshed. Dian Yan smiled foolishly and said cautiously, "It's all thanks to military advisor Yang, who doesn't think I'm slow-witted and always gives me pointers." It wasn't enough to rely on one's charisma to lead a force. One had to use both the carrot and the stick. One had to reward and punish those who deserved it. Jiang Pingji wasn't a stingy person. Yang Si and Dian Yan should receive the rewards they deserved. Only then would they be willing to sacrifice their lives for her. When Huang Song heard that Yang Si was in charge of this matter, the anger in his heart rose rapidly. This person was his nemesis. Yuan Exen was a military man. When he thought about problems, he followed his own preferences. He saw that Huang Song regretted exchanging Cangzhou and Qinzhou for Qinzhou. He said in a tiger's voice, "If my lord isn't willing, you can break the agreement." Huang Song's secret thoughts were exposed by Yuan Exen. He was embarrassed and humiliated. Before he could speak, Niesun said, "Commander Yuan, have you calculated how many troops Lu Shi has in Cangzhou?" Seeing that it was Niesun, Yuan Exen snorted coldly. "At most 5,000. Niesun said, "If it was before, this number would be correct." But Yang Si led his troops from Qinzhou to Cangzhou. He also brought 2,000 troops with him. In total, it's 7,000. In addition, Lu Shi's main force is stationed at the border of Qianyan County. At the border of Qinzhou, there are also the elites that Yang Si brought from Hu County. In total, there's no less than 60,000. Commander Yuan, have you thought about who will be at a disadvantage if so many troops are mobilized at the same time? If you want to break the agreement, you should look at the situation first. Yuan Exen was rebuked by Niesun. He was furious. He couldn't help but say, "Since Mr. Nie knows Lu Shi's troops so well, it's obvious that you've put in a lot of effort. Where did this information come from? Did you really find it out yourself, or did your good brothers secretly leak it?" Chapter 1100. What do you mean, Captain Yuan? Niesun's face was livid. His hands were clenched so tightly in his sleeves that the veins on the back of his hands popped. Seeing that Niesun was still resisting, Yuan Exen sneered and asked in a neutral tone, "What do I mean? Mr. Nie is usually very intelligent. Why are you pretending to be deaf and mute now? Do you dare to swear that you have nothing to do with Meng Heng under Lu Shi?" Nie Sun clenched his teeth. Everyone in the tent looked at Yuan Xian at the same time. Except for a few people, the others only knew that Nie Sun and Meng Heng were close. What kind of secret relationship did they have? With this doubt, their eyes became more inquisitive. Yuan Xian's question showed that the relationship between Nie Sun and Meng Heng was deeper than they thought. What, Mr. Nie doesn't dare to swear? Yuan Xian asked in an overbearing manner. Even with a full beard, others could see a hint of pride in his swollen eyes. He sneered and said in a relaxed tone, "If you don't dare, does that mean you admit it?" Nie Sun pursed his lips and stared at Yuan Xian with his dark eyes. "What does Captain Yuan want me to admit? Admit that Meng Heng is Sun's brother? So what? Sun has never done anything to betray the Lord or leak secrets. Why did Captain Yuan have to be so sarcastic? If you want to slander me, please show me solid evidence or it will be a false accusation." Hearing Nie Sun admit his relationship with Meng Heng, the others were also surprised. They had worked with Nie Sun for many years and had never heard that Nie Sun was Meng Heng's younger brother. If it was true, why did Nie Sun hide it? They were not the only brothers in different camps. It was not a big deal to make their relationship public. But Nie Sun chose to hide it, which would inevitably make people think too much. Yuan Xian was surprised that Nie Sun admitted it in public, but he would not let Nie Sun go because of this. "Mr. Nie, whether there was a betrayal or not, this is not something Mr. Nie can deny easily." Yuan Xian sneered, "Mr. Nie, if you didn't secretly collude with Meng Heng and know something in advance, why did you suggest the Lord to exchange Songzhou and Qinzhou?" Nie Sun felt that this question was ridiculous. "I'm not a saint. How can I plan everything?" Who knew what the Nie family's envoy was thinking? When they came in a menacing manner, but when they left, there were no signs. Yuan Xian sneered, "It's useless to quibble. If you want to prove that you are trustworthy, please." Nie Sun was so angry at Yuan Xian's unreasonable pestering that the 3 corpses got exploded. If it weren't for his 20 years of self-control, he would have left. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of Huang Song, who was sitting in the seat of honor. His already terrible mood immediately sank into an icy cold pond. Since Yuan Xian's revolt, Huang Song, as the Lord, had not stopped Yuan Xian. What did this mean? This meant that Huang Song was suspicious of him and wanted to use Yuan Xian's mouth to ask for an explanation and at the same time to knock him down a peg. Huang Yinya. He and the same. He and he and said he said arrogantly, "Forget it. If Commandant Yuan doesn't believe me, then so be it. Sun is loyal to the Lord. I only need the Lord to believe me." As soon as he finished speaking, Huang Song, who was seated at the head of the table, interrupted him. He reprimanded Yuan Xian and fined him a month's pay. Other than that, he didn't do anything else. When Nie Sun saw this, the coldness expanded and spread, forcefully invading his limbs and brain. The Lord was suspicious. Huang Song said, "A gentleman keeps his word. Since he promised to exchange with Lanting, he can't go back on his word. Qingyun will supervise this. We must do it safely. We can't let Lanting see us as a joke. Do you have any other opinions?" Nie Sun and Qing Jing stepped forward. Yes. Nie Sun was not in the mood to care about what they talked about after that. From the beginning to the end, he looked absent-minded. The meeting ended and everyone left. Nie Sun walked out of the tent. The slightly chilly wind blew against his cheeks, causing him to shiver and wake up with a start. "Qingyun, let's talk in private." Cheng Jing's voice came from beside him. Nie Sun's face darkened. "Yumo, you believe what Captain Yuan said?" Cheng Jing said, "Of course not. I'm afraid you fell into Lu Shi's trap." Even if they were related by blood, how much affection could a pair of brothers who had never met have? Meng Heng often looked for Nie Sun. Although they only talked about personal matters and not official matters, the coincidences made people suspicious. Cheng Jing understood Jiang Pingji's treachery, so he trusted his own judgment. Nie Sun laughed bitterly. Whether it's a trap or not, the Lord is already suspicious. How can it be easily dispelled? The seed of suspicion had already taken root and sprouted. How could it be so easy to eliminate it? Yuan Exen was to be blamed. If he hadn't reported Huang Song again and again, Huang Song wouldn't have been suspicious. Nie Sun said, "Moreover, if Captain Yuan didn't stir up trouble, why would the Lord suspect me? If Meng Hang and Sun were instigated by Lu Shi, then it shouldn't be Lu Shi's idea for Captain Yuan to provoke and cause trouble again and again, right? The Lord." Nie Sun wanted to say that Huang Song wasn't strict with his subordinates and that he was biased against outsiders. However, the person in front of him was Cheng Jing, whom Huang Song relied on. He couldn't bring himself to say it. "Captain Yuan went overboard," Cheng Jing said in a low voice. Cheng Jing said in a low voice, "He has repeatedly slandered him, but the Lord has always been lenient towards him. This is truly biased." Cheng Jing believed that Huang Song stood firmly on Nie Sun's side from the beginning. If Huang Song had severely punished Yuan Xian at that time, scolded or demoted him, would Yuan Xian have had the guts to go around snitching? It was precisely because of Huang Song's indulgence that Yuan Xian's arrogance was boosted. Nie Sun sighed, and there was some worry between his brows. "I understand what you mean, Yimo. The Lord is the Lord, and Captain Yuan is Captain Yuan. I won't abandon my duties for my personal reasons." Cheng Jing said all this to absolve Huang Song and dispel Nie Sun's resentment towards Huang Song. Cheng Yun is very understanding. The corners of Nie Sun's mouth twitched, but he didn't comment. Huang Song was so indulgent towards Yuan Xian. Other than being relatives, there was another reason. The Yuan family was Huang Song's main family. Most of the generals under him were from the Yuan family. As long as Yuan Xian didn't commit an unforgivable crime, Huang Song would deal with him lightly and wouldn't punish him heavily. On the contrary, Nie Sun's situation wasn't so optimistic. He had no foundation on Huang Song's side, and he didn't have many friends. His network was close to zero. As a lone official, he was definitely the person the Lord trusted the most because he wouldn't form a clique for personal gain. But once the Lord became suspicious of him and lost his trust, he would be in the most dangerous situation. Suddenly, Nie Sun remembered what Meng Heng had said to him. "Brother Sun, you grew up in the Nie family of Zhongzhou, and you have the blood of the Meng family of Cangzhou. Huang Song, will he really trust you?" Chapter 1101. Senior Brother Cheng. Yang Si knew that there would be a tough battle to fight next, so he ate a good meal to boost his morale and went to the battlefield valiantly. The corners of Cheng Jing's mouth twitched slightly. He didn't know if he should accept Yang Si's attempt to get close to him. Nie Sun, who was at the side, looked at Cheng Jing in surprise. His eyes were clearly filled with question marks. When did Cheng Jing become Yang Si's senior brother? That's not right. Why are Lu Shi's men and Huang Song's men so inextricably linked? If they're not brothers, they're martial brothers or uncle and nephew. There must be poison. Cheng Jing's eyes darkened, and he readily agreed. Compared to Yang Si's enthusiastic attitude, Cheng Jing's reaction seemed a little cold. Yang Si was not angry. There was even a smile on his face. He was determined to use his hot face to stick to the cold buttocks of others. "I've often heard Mr. mention senior brother. It's been many years since we last met. Senior brother is indeed a dragon among men. I like you very much." Yang Si was an orphan adopted by Master Yuan Jing when he was young. Although he did not bring him back to Langya County to be raised, his identity was not a secret. Cheng Jing was Master Yuan Jing's first disciple, so it was reasonable for Yang Si to call him senior brother. Junior brother Yang is not bad either. He has not let down Master's many years of guidance. Cheng Jing put on a fake smile. Nie Sun had been tricked, so Cheng Jing did not dare to get too close to Jiang Pengji's tent. However, Yang Si was thick-skinned enough to play the role of two people. Cheng Jing, there was so much drama. Although they were from the same sect, neither of them showed any mercy when it came to the conflict of interests. Cheng Jing did his best to fight for the benefits that Huang Song deserved. Not only did he want the entire territory of Chenzhou, but he also wanted a large number of landowning households, the families of court officials, the captured generals and soldiers, the granaries and arsenals at the various passes. He had considered almost every loophole that could be exploited. Yang Xi's side was almost the same. Not only did he have to extract benefits from Huang Song's side, but he also had to ensure the benefits that he had already eaten. The royal family of Dongqing moved the capital to Qinzhou and took away a large number of aristocrats and nobles of Dongqing. Although Prince Changshu had snatched away a portion of them, the gentry talents left behind were still considerable, almost enough to support half of the imperial court. These were all priceless treasures, far more valuable than land. If it wasn't for the fact that Jiang Pingji was taking a different route, she wouldn't have given up this part of the profits. Landowning households, officials, their families, captured soldiers. These could all be cut off at the discretion of the situation, but the stored food and weapons were a little more sensitive. Yang Xi wanted to falsify the numbers and secretly swallow a part of it. However, Qinzhou was occupied by Huang Song first, and he had detailed records of the accounts. As long as he checked the accounts, Qing Jing would know how much Yang Xi had falsely reported at a glance. Even if Yang Xi wanted to go back on his word, Qing Jing would still be able to protect most of the profits. On the contrary, Jiang Pingji had never interfered with Tsang and Zhou counties, so she did not understand the situation within the two counties. Even though Meng Heng was now under her banner, Meng Heng didn't know the situation in Sangzhou, so he couldn't be of much help. Therefore, it was very difficult for Yang Xi to determine how much Qing Jing had concealed or misreported. Under such circumstances, Yang Xi could only rely on his own ability and intuition to determine the bottom line. After a round of negotiations, Yang Xi seemed to be in high spirits, but in fact he was so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back, and his mind was muddled. Huang Baigao is really cunning. He could have just sent Qing Jing, but he added Nyesun. He was already at a disadvantage, but Yang Xi still fought against two people alone. If Yang Xi was not an experienced and astute veteran, he would have been gnawed to pieces by Qing Jing and Nyesun. It's been hard on you. Wei Ci smiled as he picked food for Yang Xi. The table was full of his favorite food. As long as there was delicious food, Yang Xi's bad mood would improve. After he was somewhat full, Yang Xi had the energy to care about other things. What does my lord mean by this? You actually want to abandon the gentry people? Yang Xi looked around. Seeing that there was no one else around, he felt at ease and whispered into Wei Ci's ear. The two had a very good relationship and spoke freely. Even if they talked about some treasonous things, Yang Xi could drag Wei Ci out to take the blame. The Lord had coveted Wei Ci for a long time. He was a death exemption medallion. Jiang Pingji secretly instructed Yang Xi that if Huang Song wanted to take away the local gentry people from Sangzhou and Zhou counties, he would take them away if he could. Of course, if Huang Song wanted to take away these talents, he would have to exchange them with equivalent benefits. Wei Ci removed the bones from the braised fish and said, "My lord has the golden scale pavilion. She can pick out useful talents almost every 1 or 2 months. Although it's not the best, it's practical and trustworthy. Moreover, the students of the Golden Scale Academy are not bad. There's no need to cling to the gentry people and not let go." Before Wei Ci could eat, Yang Xi had already shamelessly snatched the plate away, looking like he was protecting his food. "In that case, my lord's ambitions are not small." Yang Xi smiled. He was also born into a poor family. His background was very low. Naturally, he did not want a group of gentry people who were high and mighty but did not do anything to criticize him. His lord's actions were deeply in line with his intentions. "It's better to say this in private. Don't say it out loud," Wei Ci reminded him. It was a fact that his lord rarely used the gentry people. However, he could not let the outside world know clearly that she rejected the gentry people in order to avoid provoking resistance. Yang Xi smiled and said, "I'm not a 3-year-old child. How can I not know the severity of the matter?" Wei Ci sighed softly to himself. Giving up on roping in the gentry people and cutting off the support of this part of the forces would definitely be difficult on the road to attaining the throne. Who asked the gentry people to occupy nearly 60% of the world's wealth? The remaining 30% belonged to the royal family. Only 10% belonged to the people. Because Cheng Jing and Yesun retained half of the interests, Huang Song's complexion was much better. Next, as long as the two forces smoothly handed over their power, the Battle of Cangzhou would come to a successful end. Yang Si brought the account book to see Jiang Pingji. She was making a sand table. Not only were there undulating mountains, hills, and cities on the sand table, but there were also obvious rivers and borderlines. Yang Si saw a mini flag that represented the northern borderline, Chongzhou, Wanzhou, Cangzhou, Hu County, and other places. A strange animal's head was drawn on the flag. It had 2 black ears and 2 black eye sockets. It looked like it had been suffocated twice. Its big face was completely white. Looking at it, it looked like an iron-eating beast that Wei Ci hugged and stroked all day long. Jing Rong is here? Jiang Pingji raised her head and put down the tools in her hands. She patted the sand in her palms and asked, "How did it go?" "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you." Although she said so, she felt a little guilty. Yang Si did not have a concrete idea of the wealth of Cangzhou and Cangzhou. He could only make a rough judgment based on the taxes collected in previous years. Although he did not know how much profit he had fought for, it was definitely enough for 40%. Jiang Pingji flipped through the account book. The figures in it were all above her bottom line. "You've worked hard." Jiang Pingji revealed a satisfied smile. Since he had done a good job, he naturally had to be rewarded. However, apart from delicacies, Jiang Pingji really did not know that Yang Si had any other hobbies. After thinking about it, she felt that it was better to reward him with delicacies. Apart from money, Jiang Pingji gave her mansion's chef to Yang Si. He could cook whatever he liked. If the ingredients were insufficient, he could ask her for reimbursement. Chapter 1102. Your Highness, this is? I made the sand table. Jiang Pingji sounded like she was showing off, as if she was waiting for a compliment. How is it? Yang Si said, "My lord is clever and skillful." She did it vividly. It's as if she had shrunk the entire mountains and rivers and moved them here. Currently, the sand table was the simplest and crudest, but the one Jiang Pingji made was very exquisite and three-dimensional. The topography of the mountains could be seen clearly at a glance. Jiang Pingji accepted his compliment, and the smile on her lips deepened. But what's this little flag? Yang Si picked up the small flag that had fallen to the side. There was a big head of a black and white iron-eating beast drawn on it. After looking at it for a long time, he still felt that it looked very demonic. I plan to use it as a battle flag or clan emblem in the future. Jiang Pingji seemed to have slipped her tongue. She coughed awkwardly and abruptly changed the topic. Don't you think this flag is very recognizable? There are so many people with the surname Lu in the world. If one day a feudal lord with the same surname pops out and the two families face each other in battle, with the word Lu written on their banners, whoever has the ugliest handwriting will be embarrassed. Yang Si narrowed his eyes slightly. He did not care about what Jiang Pingji said in the second half of her sentence. He only cared about the first half. There was nothing wrong with using it as a war flag. My lord could use whatever pattern she liked, but this clan emblem, changing the clan emblem was a huge matter for the clan. Even the clan leader did not have full authority to make the decision. Although the lord was born in the Lu family, she had almost no connection with the Lu family. Over the years, she had not been on good terms with the Lu family in Hejin. Therefore, if she wanted to change the emblem, there was only one possibility. Set up their own clan. For example, the Wei family of Langyao was a branch of the Wei family of Zhongzhao's Bianzhou. Although the two had the same ancestor, they were two different families. If the lord also intends to become independent from the Lu family and cut off all ties with the Lu family in Hejin County, Yang Si felt a chill in his heart. Recalling the conversation he had with Wei Ci not long ago, he sighed slightly. Is my lord planning to completely cut ties with the landowning households and cut off the possibility of her relatives interfering? Jiang Pingji had just drawn 2 small flags, but Yang Si had already filled in a bunch of truths. No, Yang Si came to his senses, and the corners of his eyes twitched uncontrollably. Master, do you really intend to use this thing as Yang Si swallowed the rest of his words. Isn't it good? Jiang Pengji smiled and said, I drew it according to the iron-eating beast beside Zixiao. Do you think it's similar? Qiu used the iron-eating beast army to fight against the emperor, and the ancient trump card army used it as a war banner. Isn't it too much for me to imitate the wise men of the past? Jiang Pingji drew a cartoonish version of an iron-eating beast. It had a big face and baby fat on its cheeks. If it weren't for the obvious black and white color scheme, no one would be able to recognize the creature on the flag that had been punched twice. In ancient times, people paid particular attention to freehand brushwork and cartoonish style. I can't accept this Amway. Yang Si resisted the urge to complain and said, Zixiao is good at calligraphy and painting. Why don't you let him help to polish the design of the flag? She believed that with Wei Si's skillful hands, he would definitely be able to salvage the situation. Jiang Pengji replied without raising her head, What you said makes sense. Zixiao's painting skills are indeed not bad. She took out a blank flag, wrote the word Huang on it, and stuck it in Qinzhou on the sand table. Occasionally, Yang Si would help out by grinding the ink and passing a small pair of scissors. Not long after, the other territories on the sand table were marked with small flags. One day, I will make the entire sand table have only my flag left. Jiang Pingji bent her finger and flicked the small flag that was stuck in County. The word Su was written on it. She didn't use much strength, but the small flag was too light. It fell with a light flick. Jiang Pingji took out her iron-eating beast flag. Just like this, she flicked away the small flag with the word Su and stuck her iron-eating beast flag on it. Yang Si looked at her hand in amazement. Her slender fingers released the iron-eating beast flag. In a trance, he seemed to see scenes of a powerful army flashing before his eyes. His ears were filled with the sounds of killing and shouting. Was this the Lord's next move? Attacking the Su family? It was indeed a plastic sibling relationship. Su Pei would occasionally ask about the Lord's recent situation, but he didn't expect his lord to turn around and stab him. This stab was aimed at the other party's heart. The Su family can't be underestimated, Yang Si said. Su Pei occupies Zhe County, Hu County, and half of Zhangzhou. His family is rich. With Zhe County as his base, Su Pei had already swallowed up Hu County. He even stabbed his neighbor, Yang Tao, in the dark and snatched half of Zhangzhou. If Yang Tao hadn't expanded his influence towards Nanqing, Yang Tao would definitely fight Su Pei to the death if Su Pei snatched half of Zhangzhou from him. His cousin, Su Fei, who was initially evenly matched with Su Pei, was now hiding in a small place, struggling at death's door. Yang Si and Su Pei had been dealing with each other for a few years, so he knew him well. It's precisely because of this that I chose him. Jiang Pingji smiled. I originally wanted to attack Bogeo, but the only conflict has been resolved. I can't find a reason to attack him now. Apart from that, if I attack him, the defense line at the borders will be under great pressure. It'll also give the hidden enemy a good opportunity to launch a sneak attack. The gains don't make up for the losses. It's better to let him go first. Yang Si nodded. Indeed. It's not good to attack Magistrate Huang now. Jiang Pingji said, Bogeo can't, but Su Pei can. Yang Si asked, but what's the reason? What did it mean to attack with a good reason? There must be a legitimate reason to attack. In Jiang Pingji's case, the word legitimate could be removed, as long as there was a reason. In times of emergency, it was fine even if there wasn't a reason. Tell me, if Su Fei asks us for help, should we send troops? The smile on Jiang Pingji's lips deepened. The words that came out of her mouth made Yang Si shudder. Su Fei and I have an old friendship since we participated in the Huangshui conference together. I can't just leave him in the lurch. Yang Si was speechless. Su Pei and my lord also have an old friendship since they participated in the alliance. You've even been allies for quite a while. Using such a reason to fall out with Su Pei, Yang Si could already imagine the scene of Su Pei vomiting blood, tossing her aside after using her. His lord had the potential to be a scumbag. Because of her outstanding ability to handle matters, Yang Si, Qingjing, and Nyesun quickly completed the paperwork. Next, they only had to exchange territories to govern. Huang Song moved all his people and belongings away. Jiang Pingji also set up an ambush and ordered the garrison troops to withdraw from Qinzhou. This was already a win-win situation. Everyone had something to gain. Therefore, this farewell meal could be considered to be quite enjoyable. Jiang Pingji and Huang Song were in high spirits. The two of them even laughed and reminisced about the past. It was obvious that they had crossed swords several times. It wasn't the first time that they had hurt each other's hearts, but their relationship was still as strong as ever. The viewers in the livestream room had the deepest feelings. From Jiang Pingji's perspective, they had seen her scheme against Huang Song more than once. Of course, Huang Song had also schemed against Jiang Pingji many times. The two of them had already shed all pretense of cordiality. Now, they could still pretend that nothing had happened and restore their strong relationship as sworn brothers. Hee, their expressions changed as quickly as a tornado. Chapter 1103. Ziyi's Crystal. Hee. After seeing the fake friendship between the host and Huang Song, I no longer believe in friendship. Ya Erliang, if a real-life friend stabbed me in the back, I would definitely break off the friendship. I really don't understand how the streamer and Huang Song can continue to be friends without any ill feelings. Perhaps, this was why the host could handle the ancient times with ease, while the baby could only transmigrate once. Fantasy Purple Star Fall. Of course it's for benefits. Yu Xia Nonging. Of course it's to maintain the connection so that I can stab you back next time. #funny. Overbearing President Li Guangzai. Two nests of drama queens having a meeting. I feel like the whole world is hostile towards me after watching too much of it. Through the live stream, the audience saw the various expressions of the people in the tent and felt complicated. These people had ulterior motives and concealed daggers in their smiles. Other than themselves, no one could guess what their black hearts were plotting. Pure Angel Zhou Qilu. Sigh. I feel that the host's dark side is getting higher and higher. Tudu Feiqiu. I'm the first person to follow the live stream. I can say with confidence that the host's character has never been in vain. Jiang Pingji glanced at the bullet screen with the corner of her eye, and her eyes were filled with a faint smile. From an outsider's point of view, she glanced at the people under the tent and nodded and smiled in Nyesun's direction, like a warm spring flower blooming. In the past, Huang Song wouldn't have thought much of this, but it was different now. Lanting admires Qingyun very much. Huang Song sighed with emotion in a low voice. It was rather noisy in the tent. He deliberately lowered his voice so that only Jiang Pingji could hear him. Jiang Pingji was startled for a moment. She seemed to be awakened by Huang Song's voice, and she forced herself to come back to her senses. Are you sincere? No matter what, he's still she's cousin, so it's hard not to feel closer to him. Ogeo, don't think too much. Huang Song said, I'm not thinking too much, but he felt a little suffocated. Once the seed of doubt sprouted, it would be difficult to remove it. Just like how a broken mirror would leave behind a crack that could not be ignored, digging out a germinating seed would also leave behind a shallow pit. With Yuan Xian, a foreign relative who loved to snitch, by Huang Song's side, it would be difficult for Nyesun to be a lone official. Jiang Pingji saw that Huang Song's expression was a little strange. Her smile deepened. There was a grudge between Huang Song and Nyesun, but it was not enough for them to turn against each other. She was not anxious. However, Feng Jin and Feng Ju made her a little disappointed. If they could use Feng Jin to provoke a crisis of trust between Feng Ju and Huang Song, it would be the highlight of the year. However, Feng Jin said, Your Highness, the same move can only be used once. Meng Heng had already made Huang Song suspect Nyesun. If the same thing happened to Feng Ju, Huang Song would not fall for it at all. Not only that, but he would also wake up in time and eliminate his suspicions towards Nyesun. In this way, Jiang Pingji's side had lost everything. Her previous efforts were in vain. Huai Lei is very wary. This kind of sowing discord is useless against him. Feng Jin knew his brother very well. He said, his friendship with Huang Song is not ordinary. Ordinary sowing of discord will not affect their relationship. The reason why Nyesun is in Zhongzhou is because Huang Song doesn't trust him enough. If Nyesun heard Feng Jin's words, he would probably feel hurt. After the banquet, Huang Song started to get busy. The 2 counties of Zhangzhou had been transferred to Jiangpingji. This was her territory. As an outsider, Huang Song naturally could not stay for long. More importantly, he needed to go to Chenzhou to clean up the mess. He did not have extra time to waste here. Sergio, I remember that your wife is still in Heda County of Haozhou, right? Jiang Pingji keenly noticed that Meng Heng's mood was a little off. She thought for a while and found the key point. Meng Heng said, Your Highness did not remember wrongly. My wife is pregnant and it is not suitable for her to travel with the army. Therefore, she is temporarily left in Heda County. The relationship between Jiang Pingji and Huang Song looked firm on the surface, but it was full of cracks on the inside. No one knew when they would completely break up. Meng Heng was worried about his wife's safety, but he did not want to add to Jiang Pingji's worries, so he could only suppress his emotions. Now that she had seen through him, Meng Heng naturally would not hide it. He directly told her the truth. So that's how it is. I was negligent. Jiang Pingji's smile was a little vexed. She revealed her canine teeth, which was a little cute. If my cousin-in-law stays in Haozhou, she will inevitably disturb Bogeo. Taking advantage of the fact that she is still young and the war has been settled, I will send a team to follow you to fetch her back. I'll mention this to Bogeo, in case he forgets and wastes time. The relationship between Jiang Pingji and Huang Song was more subtle. If it was delayed for too long, Huang Song would probably find a lot of reasons to detain Meng Heng's wife and child. Jiang Pingji could not give Huang Song an excuse to make things difficult for her. On the contrary, she wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to make things difficult for Huang Song. After all, Meng Heng's wife and Nyesun's wife lived together. Meng Heng could not avoid Nyesun when he picked up his wife. On the other end, Meng Heng heard Jiang Pingji's arrangements and breathed a long sigh of relief. The Meng family in Zhangzhou was destroyed. This led to another major reshuffle of the forces in Dongqing. Jiang Pingji's territory had gained another province. After experiencing the baptism of war and the disaster of the Meng family, Zhangzhou was in full swing. Jiang Pingji still had enough manpower on hand, so she did not borrow people from Wanzhou for the time being. Yang Si saw that the situation was not good, so he escaped. He still had a heavy responsibility to manage the evacuation of the garrison troops in Chenzhou. He was very busy. Before escaping, Yang Si also took Dian Yen with him in the spirit of brotherhood. The honest Dian Yen shed tears of gratitude. Ever since he learned to be cultured, he was used by his lord as a half-cultured person. Only God knew that he was only interested in military books and strategies. The 2 of them could find an excuse to slip away, but the others were not so lucky. It had become a habit to work overtime after every war. Before Huang Song left, he took with him almost all the aristocratic families in Zhangzhou and Zhangzhou counties. When the wealthy aristocratic families left, they naturally took with them most of the money, grain, and officials of all sizes. Zhangzhou was now poor. There were only countless starving people waiting for Jiang Pingji to feed them. She was the best at rebuilding after war. She had accumulated enough experience in the past, so it was not difficult to operate now. As long as they worked together to get through the most difficult half a year, Zhangzhou would return to a state of prosperity when they reclaimed wastelands and harvested the next year. Of course, the blueprint was beautiful. Behind the blueprint was the hard work of Feng Zhen, Wei Ci, Feng Jin, and the others, day and night. The only way to relieve my worries is to stroke the cat. Feng Zhen stroked Wei Ci's pet when he had nothing to do. The pressure of working overtime was reduced. Fortunately, the cat was still young. If it was older, it would slap the unruly people who offended it with its paw. I heard that the envoy from the Yi family of Beiwan was summoned back as soon as he arrived at Yumen Pass. Wei Ci held the brush with both hands and multitasked. He had to deal with 2 bamboo slips and endure Feng Zhen's noise at the same time. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.